Dear audience, we'll be starting the event shortly. Till then, I would like to request all the participants to please put your mobiles on mute to avoid any unavoidable sounds.
होगा स्टार्ट, आप जा सकते हो। 6 बजे स्टार्ट हो तो मुझे लगता है बाई 6:20 आई शुड बी फ्री। नहीं, आप जा सकते हो।
Dear participants, our chief guest will be joining us by 7 p.m. as he has some urgent meetings to attend. So I hope you guys don't mind, and our chief guest will be joining at 7 o'clock.
Hello. Ma'am, should we stay here for 7 o'clock or maybe leave and rejoin at 7 o'clock?
No, sir. We are starting inaugural function. Chief guest will address at 7 during the first expert talk. Pravalika, you can start.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of Sri Mata Vaishno Devi University, School of Mechanical Engineering, it is my immense pleasure to welcome you all to the inaugural ceremony of the prestigious AICTE ATAL Faculty Development Program on Green Hydrogen Generation Opportunities and Challenges in India. It gives me immense joy to let you all know that around 219 participants across 21 states are registered in this program. This 6-day faculty development program has been meticulously designed to provide a platform for educators, researchers, and professionals to explore innovative approaches, challenges, and future possibilities in the field of green hydrogen. It aligns perfectly with India's vision of sustainable energy and environmental stewardship. And as we commence this event, let us seek the blessings of Ma Saraswati, the goddess of wisdom and knowledge. To guide us through this clarity and enlightenment, I request Sakshi for Saraswati Vandana. हे शारदे माँ, हे शारदे माँ, अज्ञानता से हमें तार दे माँ। हे शारदे माँ, हे शारदे माँ, अज्ञानता से हमें तार दे माँ। तू स्वर की देवी है, संगीत तुझसे, हर शब्द तेरा है, हर गीत तुझसे। तू स्वर की देवी है, संगीत तुझसे, हर शब्द तेरा है, हर गीत तुझसे। हम हैं अकेले, हम हैं अधूरे, तेरी शरण हम, हमें प्यार दे माँ। हे शारदे माँ, हे शारदे माँ, अज्ञानता से हमें तार दे माँ। मुनियों ने समझी, गुनियों ने जानी, वेदों की भाषा, पुराणों की वाणी। मुनियों ने समझी, गुनियों ने जानी, वेदों की भाषा, पुराणों की वाणी। हम भी तो समझे, हम भी तो जाने, विद्या का हमको अधिकार दे माँ। हे शारदे माँ, हे शारदे माँ, अज्ञानता से हमें तार दे माँ। Thank you for the beautiful invocation. With the blessings of Ma Saraswati, we'll now proceed to the next segment of our program. To officially commence this program, I would like to invite Dr. M. Ishwarmurthy, the program coordinator, to deliver the welcome address and provide an overview of this faculty development program. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Pravalika. So, very good evening, one and all. So, on behalf of Sri Mata Vaishnavi University, it is my honor to welcome Professor Dr. Pragati Kumar, the Vice Chancellor, Sri Mata Vaishnavi University, who is the driving force and the motivator to organize this event. Welcome, sir. And it's a great pleasure to the end of the evening to welcome our chief guest, but in absence because of his last minute, the meeting, the budget meeting, he would not join right now, but he's assured his office at 7 o'clock he will be addressing this gathering. The Commissioner, the Secretary, the Department of Science and Technology, Jammu and Kashmir, on his personal time. In absence, I welcome, sir. I extend my warm welcome to all the resource persons, Professor Balveer Singh, the in-charge Dean, Faculty of Engineering, Dr. Yatish Anand, the Head, School of Mechanical Engineering, and my faculty colleagues and all the participants who joined for this inaugural ATAL FTP program across 21 states across the breadth and width of India. I welcome you all. So I guarantee that your next 5 days will be memorable and taking some good the intake insights on the green hydrogen generation opportunities in India. Once again, on behalf of Sri Mata Vaishnavi University, I warm welcome to all of you. So as per the program is concerned, we received 219 participants as on in the afternoon across 21 states. That's the participants currently on board with us in 138. So some people joined. And the expert we are taken from the ex-advisor, the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, Dr. N.R. Nouni. So in IIT Jammu, the senior professors and the current head of the department, and the director and deputy director from National Institute of Solar Energy, New Delhi. So they joining with us to handle almost 13 sessions in the field of green hydrogen as per the schedule. Please aware that as per the AICTE guidelines, 80% attendance is compulsory and 70% marks at the end of the day are eligible for the award of the certificate to participants. I hope this is in guideline throughout India. It's followed. So with this note, I thank you for successful the program. So thank you so much. So over to Prabhu.
Thank you, sir, for your warm welcome and your insightful introduction. Moving forward, I would like to invite the head of School of Mechanical Engineering, Shri Mata Vaishno Devi University, Dr. Yatesh Anand, sir, for his insights.
Very good evening to all of you. Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Pragati Kumar, Professor Ishwara Murthy, Professor Balbir Singh, our speaker of the moment, and my faculty members. It is my distinct honor and privilege to welcome you all to the Faculty Development Program on Green Hydrogen Generation Opportunities and Challenges in India. This significant gathering reflects our shared commitment to address critical energy environmental challenges through education, research, and collaborations. I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Sir, Professor Pragati Kumar, for his visionary leadership and constant encouragement in fostering academic excellence and innovation within our institutions. As we move further, the theme of this program, the green hydrogen, is a vital aspect of the global transition towards cleaner energy. It offers immense potential to decarbonize industries, power systems, and transportation, thus playing a pivotal role in addressing climate change and achieving energy self-reliance. As educators, we have a profound role in exploring this technology, shaping its discourse, and empowering the next generation of thinkers and innovators to lead us in this charge. This faculty development program at Shrimata Vaishnavi University, School of Mechanical Engineering, Shrimata Vaishnavi University, has been meticulously crafted to provide participants with insights into the technological, economic, and policy dimensions of green hydrogen. We also know that our country is nowadays progressing towards uh, developing more greener technologies. Like now, recently we have just got to know that at a very small stretch, there's a hydrogen engine to be plying in Haryana between Jind and Sonipat. So this is one of the key steps that we have taken. So it also serves, this FDP will also serve as a platform to engaging with experts and peers, enabling meaningful collaborations that can drive impactful research and teaching both at Shrimata Vaishnavi University and Pan India. I extend my sincere thanks to other distinguished speakers who will be joining lately during the course of this FDP in 5 days, and resource persons who have graciously agreed to share their expertise with us. To all participants, I encourage you to actively engage in the sessions, ask questions, and make the most of this invaluable opportunity to broaden your knowledge and network. Let us together chart a course of a sustainable and greener future. I wish this program and the coordinators of this program a great success and hope it leaves us inspired and make meaningful contributions to the field of green hydrogen. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your valuable words, sir. And it is actually a fact that asking questions gives you more knowledge than learning and reading. So I hope all the participants present here would ask questions after each and every session to
Sure,
increase your
sure.
knowledge.
Thank you. In fact, we can keep a question
For
answer session separately for this.
yes, sir. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Moving forward, I would like to invite Dean of Faculty of Engineering, Shri Mata Vaishno Devi University, Dr. Balbir Singh, sir, for his address.
Probably he's at mute. Professor Balbir, you are at mute.
Very good evening to Professor Pragati Kumar sir, Honorable Vice Chancellor, Shri Mata Vaishno Devi University, Professor Ishwara Murthy, Coordinator for this workshop, Dr. Rajiv Kumar, Co-Coordinator for this workshop, Dr. Yatesh Anand, Head School of Mechanical Engineering, resource person and esteemed participant. On behalf of Dean Faculty of Engineering and Academic Affairs section, I welcome you all to 6 days online AICTE ATAL FDP on green hydrogen generation opportunities and challenges in India. As we all know that fossil fuels are depleting and the solution is only and only is going for the renewable energy. And this is the only the solution. And I really appreciate Professor Ishwamurthy sir for choosing this right topic in a present scenarios and congratulate all participants also for this great initiative for participating in this workshop. And I hope this joint initiative will go a long way in our country to contribute for these hydrogen generations and to overcome the global issues which everyone is facing. So before leaving, I must say to all the participants across the country that our Shri Mata Vaishno Devi University is a fully residential university with more than 370-acre land and offering various programs, BTech programs, MTech programs, PhD programs, BR, B Design, and MBA, MA, MSc, BA, BSc, and recently we have started Design Your Degree program, BTech in Mathematics and Computing programs, then BTech in Biotech, and all the latest programs as per the NEP, that is a 4-year UG programs are there. So once again, I congratulate coordinators, co-coordinator, and entire organizing team and all the participants for joining this great mission to work on the renewable energy source and to work in this direction. So thanks to all. So wish you have a very fruitful learning out of this session and all the coming sessions from this workshop and go deeper into that and contribute. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Renewable energy is indeed the need of the hour. To further grace this occasion, it is my honor to invite Professor Dr. Prakati Kumar sir, Honorable Vice Chancellor, Shri Mata Vaishno Devi University, to deliver his presidential address. Please, sir.
Good evening and Jai Mata Di to all the participants and the organizers of this faculty development program. At the very outset, let me compliment the School of Mechanical Engineering and Professor Ishwar Murthy, Dr. Rajiv Kumar, Professor Yathesh Anand, and all other faculty members who applied for getting this FDP sanctioned by the All India Council of Technical Education, and they were able to get this faculty development program sanctioned. You all are aware, I don't know the background of all the participants. I was just given this information that more than 215 faculty members and students also, they have formally registered for this online faculty development program. These numbers are quite encouraging, and it clearly shows that the tendency of lifelong learning is strongly ingrained in faculty members throughout the country, and this is the only way in which we can keep ourselves updated and also try to learn new technologies so that these ideas, technologies, and concepts are passed on through us to the younger generation who are coming to the educational institutions. And at times, it has been my experience that there used to be old times when whatever was being taught in the educational institutions, the industry used to be couple of years behind that. No longer the case. These days, all faculty members must be realizing that what we are delivering at different educational institutions and what is being actually practiced in industry across the board. Now the industry is leading, and most of the time faculty members are at a loss. And this is one of the reasons there is a lack of interest among all the students in attending the classes. And this issue, All India Council of Technical Education and the policy makers at the national level, they have rightly identified the main problem. Main problem is that our curricula is increasingly becoming not relevant to what is the demand of the industry. And as such, they are facilitating lots and lots of self-learning programs, including the ones which are being sponsored by the All India Council of Technical Education or from the platform of Madan Mohan Malviya Teachers Training Center. And though this program is an online program, Sri Mata Vaishno Devi University is also organizing several programs in physical mode also. But at times it has been our experience that the minimum number of required participants for running a program in physical mode, we are not able to attract those many external participants. So I take this opportunity to sensitize all the faculty members who are attending this program that whenever and wherever you get an opportunity to participate in a faculty development program in physical mode, then you must try to break away from your routine environments and must try to attend those physical programs also. Now, coming back to the theme of this program, I'll just narrate an anecdote through which I'll just like to convey to you that how relevant the topic of green hydrogen has become these days. Couple of months back, a member of parliament, he's a good friend of mine. He approached me saying that Pragati Kumar ji, green hydrogen पे पार्लियामेंट में कुछ प्रेजेंट होना है तो आई नीड योर हेल्प एंड फ्रैंकली स्पीकिंग I was not aware of, in fact, I might have heard this term green hydrogen, but the context was totally alien to me. And then I took it upon myself to arrange for some material and then passed it on to the gentleman in question. And then I was able to know that there is a full-fledged spectrum of hydrogen, starting from green, going up to white. And in between, you have the so-called blue hydrogen, gray hydrogen, then black and brown hydrogen, pink hydrogen, and turquoise. So all these different categorization of hydrogen, it is quite fascinating. And in fact, I was made aware that enough water has flown down the Ganges when we did our engineering. And now what has become most important national priority these days. Needless to say, you would be exposed to, you would be given opportunity to interact with experts in the area of green hydrogen and production technologies, and you would be interacting. You would be not only listening to their lectures; they are all expert in that particular area. But then keep this thing in mind that whatever you are receiving through this faculty development course, it should not ultimately, it should immediately go to your students. Maybe most of the students are illiterate like me as far as the hydrogen spectrum is concerned. But then you could also see from the material which is available in the public domain regarding green hydrogen that any of the problems associated with its mass utilization, then its transportation, production, and different aspects of green hydrogen, they are all complete engineering problems requiring interdisciplinary approach for finding out meaningful solution. And this is the reason Government of India is according very high priority to the area of green hydrogen. Not that if we have to meet the emission criteria. Of course, any sovereign country must have a diverse mix for its energy uses. We have to develop our renewables also. We cannot eliminate altogether our dependence on fossil fuels also. But at the same time, alternative technologies, and you must have read and heard our Union Minister for Transportation, Sri Nitin Gadkari ji, the way he is exposing all of us towards use of hydrogen in transportation sector, and then different automobile companies have also started working aggressively on development of hydrogen-based transportation solutions also depend. Of course, there cannot be a single size fit for all the problems of energy sector, and this is another incentive for us to go into the area of hydrogen as an energy source, deal with different aspects of utilization of hydrogen as an energy source. In fact, I was surprised to note while I was doing some reading for this address only, it came as a surprise to me that hydrogen has got the highest energy density. And it is, of course, this highest energy density of the problems associated with hydrogen, like it being highly inflammable, cause or would require lots of safety measures to be ensured, and then the transportation is another problem. Similarly, the very fact that the most abundantly available material in the world is not available in free form. This is also an interesting, for me, it was an information. And then that's why we have to separate hydrogen from wherever we can separate it, whether through electrolysis process or whether we have to unlock the hydrogen from fossil fuels and things like that. Now, without taking much time, I would be again wishing all of you very good 5-6 days of this faculty development program, and I expect all of you to interact with our esteemed experts who are all giants in their own fields. And I also would like to thank Sri Saurabh Bhagatji, who is the Secretary and Commissioner for the Department of Science and Technology, Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir government, who definitely would be joining you at 7 a.m. to share his vision and his experience with science and technology development in the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir, and other faculty members from different institutions who are participating, and then wishing the organizers a great success towards the end of this particular program. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. It is as expected as from our Honorable Vice Chancellor. Any event you attend, the background study that you do is just inspiring, and the topics that you put forward with us are just so inspiring and so interesting that we have heard it for the first time. And thank you for your enriching address, sir. As we draw to the close to the inaugural ceremony, it is time to express our gratitude to all the people who made this possible. To deliver the vote of thanks, I would now like to invite Dr. Rajiv Kumar, the co-coordinator of this program, for his vote of thanks. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Pravalika. It is my privilege to propose a vote of thanks for the ATAL FDP. First of all, on behalf of Sri Mata Vaishno Devi University, Katra, we are thankful to our chief guest, Sri Saurabh Bhagatji, Commissioner Secretary, DST J&K. As we know, they will join shortly and will address the gathering. So, and we are very grateful to have our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Pragati Kumar Sir, for gracing the inaugural ceremony, our guiding force, and that always inspired us to do our best and stand as a pillar of power. I thank Dean FOE Professor Singh for his thoughts on the occasion, and head of the School of Mechanical Engineering, Dr. Yathesh Anand sir, for his valuable thoughts. I thank AICTE for giving our university the opportunity and to interact with all participants and other dignitaries. I thank university authorities for their support and other sports like Network Center, Media Cell for organizing this event. I thank all participants and look forward to your contribution through active participation. And we all know it's in online mode, We would like to host you in offline mode also, as our Honorable Vice Chancellor sir has mentioned. We organize many events. Mostly in every week, you will find a event in our university, and you can check our website, and you can come. We will like to host you. It's a campus is very beautiful in the lap of Ma Vaishno Devi. So we would like to host you offline also. I thank all organizing committee members for their efforts to organize this event. Thanks all once again for being with us. Thank you very much. And now I would like Murthy sir to take over to start our first of the ATAL FDP. Thank you all once again.
Thank you, Dr. Rajiv Kumar. So our next speaker, so first speaker, the session one is Dr. Nouni. He's an ex-advisor. So about to join. So we'll wait for 2 minutes, then we'll start our first session. Network Center and Dr. N.R. Nouni sir is joined. Please you give add as a co-host now. Yeah, he's joined. Very good evening, sir. So I'd like to introduce our the first session, first speaker, Dr. N.R. Nouni sir. He was worked in the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy as a director and the NISE as a technical consultant in exclusively on this hydrogen and hydrogen storage, hydrogen technologies. I think we decided when starting the session with a senior person working on this hydrogen energy will be in a proper and address this gathering, in which it is very honored to be here. So without wasting my time, I like to hand over this session to Dr. Nouni sir. So with the request, sir, actually the chief guest, he was in the meeting, and Dr. Sri Saurav Bhagat. So we are requested him to give address for 5 minutes in your time, sir. Sir, now I like he will join at 7 o'clock. So this information to you.
Thank you, Professor Ishwara Murthy, for that introduction. And first of all, I would like to thank both AICTE and Shri Mata Vaishno Devi University for selecting such a topical topic for this particular program for faculty development, which is related to hydrogen energy. And secondly, I would like to thank the organizers for giving me an opportunity to share my thoughts with the participants. Since this is the first technical session of this particular program, the topic of my presentation is Introduction to Hydrogen Energy, an overview of hydrogen production, methods and technologies. I hope the presentation is visible and I am properly audible.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, then I'll proceed further. The contents of this particular presentation are divided into: first, I'll discuss drivers of hydrogen energy. Thereafter, some basics about hydrogen, followed by green hydrogen colors and its definition, global hydrogen market landscape, hydrogen production methods and technologies, and then briefly in 2-3 slides, I'll touch upon
Nouni sir, Nouni sir, sorry for the interpretation. So there, our Sri Saurabh Bhagat, the secretary, has joined Commissioner JNK. So 5 minutes, sir, so sir will give address for
Okay.
his chief guest with the
Okay.
permission. Yeah. So welcome, sir. Welcome, Dr. Sri Saurabh Bhagat. It was a long pending. So since from 2023, when we are invited, that time we were in the election. Tutti, that is in Mangalore. So now we are very much happy to invite you here, sir, on board. So now I like to ask my co-coordinator kindly introduce our chief guest, sir, please.
Pravalika, please introduce our chief guest, Sri Saurabh.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is my privilege to introduce Shri Saurabh Bhagat, IAS Commissioner Secretary to the Government, Science and Technology Department, Jammu and Kashmir. Mr. Bhagat is a postgraduate in clinical psychology with gold medal and bachelor's degree in business management. He is a senior IAS officer of the Union Territory cadre who has served Jammu and Kashmir government for 20 years and is presently working as Commissioner to Government Department of Science and Technology and Renewable Energy. He has vast experience as an administrator in the government in the capacity of Administrative Secretary of critical departments like Forest, Ecology and Environment, Jal Shakti, Industry and Commerce, Consumer Affairs and Public Distribution System, Tribal Affairs, Labor and Employment Department. He has also served as major head of the departments as Transport Commissioner, Chief Executive Officer, Economic Reconstruction Agency, and also the Project Director, School and Technical Education, Jammu and Chief Executive Officer, Jammu and Kashmir E-Governance Agency. He has also served as District Development Commissioner for a period, and he also worked in the districts of Doda and Samba as an additional District Development Commissioner, Jammu, and Subdivisional Magistrate in Basoli, Bani, and Bilawar in the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir. He has been trained extensively in international institutes like Maxwell, USA, KDI, Korea, IEEA in Japan, and Asian Development Bank, Manila, Philippines. He is an avid reader and writer in psychology, public policy, and finance. He has several notable achievements to his credit, including implantation of National Food Safety Act and major urban infrastructure in Jammu and Kashmir cities. So, as I have already told, our chief guest today has a very great background behind. I would like to request Mr. Satish Bhagat sir for his address. Over to you, sir.
It provides me immense pleasure to participate in this significant event. First of all, I would like to name uh, Professor Dr. Pragati Kumar, the Vice Chancellor of the University, uh, Dean Faculty of Engineering, Head School of Mechanical Engineering, and important resource persons of this ATAL FDP, and various faculty members. Uh, I would, on behalf of the DST JNK, highly appreciate the efforts of the university in addressing a very, very significant aspect, that is of the green hydrogen. In the discourse of Government of India and of Niti Aayog, the idea of taking India to a 5 trillion economy centers around our energy management. And I would like to mention that in Jammu Kashmir, within my department, we have an agency called JK Energy Development Agency, where we are doing several initiatives regarding solar rooftop and mini hydro projects and several other areas. But I think one of the important areas in science is the green hydrogen technology, on which Honorable Transport Minister of India, Nitin Gadkari ji, has been regularly mentioning, and as also the Renewable Energy Minister, Government of India. I think the University of Sri Mata Vaishno Devi, with its 26th rank among the various architecture institutions and 150th rank among engineering colleges, and between 151 and 100 among the institutions under the NIRF setup, is quite importantly poised to make strides in this area. While some of the other states and union territories of India have taken some steps in this direction, especially some of the IITs and the regional institutes of engineering. But in JNK, not much has been done in this particular area. I'm sure some of the luminaries and experts who will be talking during this interaction would be able to enlighten us and help us in this particular area. It is very critical that this ATAL FDP is an agency by which the education teaching skills of the faculty in the engineering sector are updated. As we know that the winds of change in technology are so fast that even if somebody is qualified even as a doctorate in the particular field, very quickly the technology changes. And one such example is the the green hydrogen and green energy technology. And therefore, I find that this kind of opportunity being provided to the junior faculty to learn from senior faculty members, from certain industrial partners who are making pioneering or maverick work in this field is very welcome. I would thank the Vice Chancellor to associate me with this important event. And I'm told that today and tomorrow for 2 days this entire interaction will continue. And I would like that if the university would be kind enough to make a record of the deliberations and make some very cogent recommendation to the government of J&K, where this department can actually fund some of your research projects. I'm happy to inform that a very small amount of around 40 lakhs has been provided to the university in the form of 6 research projects. Overall, J&K DSTs is supporting around 270 research projects across the various universities of J&K. And we would also like that if on the subject of the green hydrogen, if some research project is made which can even be across universities, the department will be very happy to sponsor it. In fact, I've just come back from a budget meeting because of which I was a bit delayed in my speech. So we have also got approved one of the budget heads for green hydrogen. And if your university takes the lead and wants to put up a prototype or initial startup using some of your faculty members or students, we would like to fund it, and I think it will be money well spent. Also, if you would like to collaborate with some of the other premier institutes or centers of excellence in India, we can also give you a multidisciplinary grant in this regard. In addition to this, the decarbonization of the economy and the movement towards renewable energy, huge targets have been made by MNRE, and even the green energy target of 500 gigawatt till 2030 is also a very lofty target. And I'm sure, in addition to solar and small hydro, biomass energy and green hydrogen will play a very critical role. So therefore, this huge gap in understanding the technology, in its implementation, and in how to take it from the universities to the laboratory and from laboratory to the industry, I think this is the basic purpose of today's event. And I'm sure the senior professors and senior faculty members would be speaking here will enlighten us. And it is also an area very close to my heart, and I think this new energy should be documented. I would also like to share with the university that if you would like to make some kind of a incubation lab or a tinkering lab, or for that matter, if you would like to hold hands with some of the other premier institutes on anything related to this technology, we would be very happy to provide you a little bit of funding in this regard. Thank you.
Thank you, Sri Saurabh Bhagat, the Commissionerate Secretary, Department of Science and Technology, Jammu and Kashmir. So, in spite of your busy schedule and having portfolio of different Udukundakan secretary, it's very difficult to address this gathering. Nearly almost 172 on board now. So people might be carried a good message. So your presence really enriched us. Where the first session we have with Dr. Nouni. He was in National Institute of Solar Energy quite long time, and he is taking a first session opening batsman of this FDP in 6 days. It's a good start, and your presence also it's good, sir. Thank you so much. So definitely whatever the information you provided the support, we will work out on the keeping the state hydrogen center or hydrogen hub. Probably it's Telangana and Kerala. They already started. Probably Jammu we will start together with Central Institute and with the State Institute also, with your funding support and central support. Definitely, sir, we will work together for this energy independent by 2047. Definitely, we will do something. So, thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
Thanks for coming, sir. Thank you.
Please share the numbers also of your experts so that Jakida, Mr. Dar, who is the head of the Jakida, JK Energy Development Agency, he can tie up with them for some collaboration, because they are
Sure,
sitting
sir.
hearing you, my entire team, so they will like to collaborate.
Yeah, sir, definitely. It's thank you, sir. Thank you, very kind of you. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Now, so, sir, Nouni, sir, please continue. Thanks for giving time for us. So now the over to Nouni, sir.
Thank you, Professor Ishwamurthy, once again. So I was just mentioning what all I would be covering in my presentation. So basically, I'll touch upon drivers of hydrogen energy, then some basics about hydrogen, followed by green hydrogen colors and its definition, then global hydrogen market landscape, and what are the different hydrogen production methods and technologies associated. I'll briefly touch upon the hydrogen storage and applications also, and then I'll conclude up whatever I'll discuss in this particular presentation. So let us come to drivers of hydrogen energy. Globally, there is a lot of interest in low emission hydrogen, and governments globally, they have intensified their efforts for deployment of renewable energy systems. They have their net zero emission commitments, and then in order to integrate the low emission hydrogen into their strategic plans. So hydrogen is slowly coming into the center stage of the energy policies and energy plans of the different governments. And as a result of it, several major economies in the recent years, they have introduced new industrial policies in which hydrogen technologies, they are getting some sort of prominence. In this context, a total of 30 advanced economies, that includes European Union, and 30 developing economies, they have already adopted hydrogen strategies. How exactly they would promote green hydrogen in their economies. So what are the drivers which are prompting the different countries to go for green hydrogen? Just to give the details, these are some 60 odd countries which from the year 2017 up to 2024 now have come out with their hydrogen strategies. In this particular slide, relationship among global energy consumption, population, and GDP, that has been explained. Here, in this slide, which is for global, it covers the global thing. This particular curve, which is in black, that shows energy consumption from 1800 up to now. So there is a rising trend of the energy consumption. Similarly, the population has also been rising, and GDP per capita, that is also rising. So all these three things, that is energy consumption, population, and GDP per capita, they are interrelated. In respect of low income countries, there is some sort of a different trend, but in general, the energy consumption, population, and GDP per capita, they are increasing. Energy is basically considered as a driving force both for economic growth and the development of the economies. Generally, growth in economy, that leads to growth in energy consumption, while a shortfall in energy supply, that constrains the economic growth, There have been some deviations with regard to this because of energy efficiency. For certain developed countries, there is not increase in their energy consumption with the growth in the economy. So that is some exception, but in general, this trend is there. So, the GDP is bound to increase in the coming years. In 2023, the global GDP was 105 trillion. That is one indication. And here in this curve, on the right-hand side top, we are showing how the population has increased and what is the trend in the coming years. So, population would also increase. As a result, so population is increasing, the GDP is also going to increase. So that indicates that the demand for energy would also increase in the coming years. This gives some sort of a snapshot in 2023 with regard to global electricity generation source wise. Total electricity generation was about 29,000 terawatt hours, of which about 61% was contributed by fossils. The contribution of coal was about 35%, that is more than 10,000 terawatt hours. Gas produced about 23%, and other fossil fuels, they made 2.7%. Contribution of renewable was about 30%, of which hydro was the largest low carbon source of electricity and contributing about 14%. Solar and wind put together, they generated about 13.4%, which is close to 4,000 terawatt hours, of which contribution of wind was about 7.8% and solar was about 5.5%. Production from bioenergy was about 2.4%, and other renewables, they generated about 0.3%, and nuclear power contributed about 9%, making the total contribution from clean generation, if we add nuclear and renewables together, then it becomes 39%. It is clean in the sense that nuclear power does not contribute to any CO2 emissions. Here is a comparison how these energy sources, they have taken shape over the last so many years. Share of fossil generation in global electricity demand, it peaked around 68% in 2007 and has declined to 61% now due to a urgency globally that the economies have to be decarbonized. Generation from fossil fuels, in terms of the absolute terms, that is still increasing. Coal generation nearly doubled from about 5,800 terawatt hours in 2000 to more than 10,000 terawatt hours in 2023. Similarly, gas generation more than doubled from 2000 to 2023. It reached about 6,600 terawatt hours in 2023. Other fossil fuel generation, that is mainly oil, it declined from 1,300 terawatt hours in 2000 to about 786 terawatt hours in 2023. On the other side, the contribution of renewables reached 19%, reached 30% in 2023 from 19% in 2000. And this was mainly driven by rapid growth in wind and solar. In 2023, I mentioned in the earlier slide that these two sources, they contributed about 13.4%, whereas it was hardly 0.2% in 2000. Hydro generation, it grew by 60% between 2000 and 2023, but its share in the electricity mix, it has declined from 17% to 14%. With a share of about 16%, non-hydro renewable, they surpassed hydro generation in 2023. And nuclear generation has mostly remained stable, with electricity demand nearly doubling over the last 2 decades. And the share of nuclear generation, it has fell from 16.6% in 2000 to 9.1% in 2023. Here in this slide, I'm showing how the power sector has grown in India. The top red line shows how the total installed capacity has grown from 2010 to 2024, that is as on 31st March. There was a steep growth up to 2016, both for thermal as well as total installed capacity. Thereafter, the gradient of thermal, it has become somewhat flatter, whereas this green curve here, it shows the renewable energy systems. From 2016 onwards, there is a trend of steeper growth in renewables, and as on the growth in hydro and nuclear has been more or less flat from 2010 to 2024. As of 31st March 2024, the total solar was about 81 gigawatt, wind was about 46 gigawatt, biomass was about 11 gigawatt, small hydro was 5 gigawatt, and the total renewable energy system bouquet was about 144 gigawatt. Here in this curve, it is shown that how renewable power generating capacity as a percentage of total capacity has grown from 10% in 2010 to about 33% in 2024. And in this curve, the contribution of thermal and renewable to total electricity generation for India has been depicted. On one side, the renewables, they contributed 12.6% in 2023-24 in terms of the electricity generation, whereas it was hardly 4.6% in 2010-11. And on the other side, we see somewhat a falling trend of the contribution of thermal in terms of the total electricity generation in the country. Here, how the climate change is affecting the globe, that has been shown. Climate change, in fact, is the most daunting challenge that is faced by the humankind. Global energy related CO2 emissions, it reached about 37.4 gigaton in 2023, and of this 37.4 gigaton, contribution from electricity and heat sector was about 14.86 gigaton, which was about 40%. And of this 14.86 gigaton, China contributed about 39%, which is about 4.49 gigaton, followed by USA with contribution of 11%, and India occupied third position with about 1.4 gigaton CO2, which was about 10% in terms of the contribution from electricity and heat sector. Here in this particular slide, how the international prices of crude oil, they have been changing. There has been drastic increases, then there has been steep shortfall, and we can say there have been a lot of volatility, and this volatility is basically due to disruptions or uncertainty in supplies or demand. So wherever some major events like Iran-Iraq war or the Arab oil embargo, when there was some kind of a disruption in supplies was anticipated, the prices went up. And similarly, more recently, when Russia invaded Ukraine, again the energy prices went up. But whenever there have been some kind of a economic slowdowns, the demand has come down, and that has pushed the prices of the crude oil down. So because of this volatility in the international prices of crude oil, uh, many countries, they have been seriously making energy security as one of the main say instrument of their energy policy. So how can they really make their energy supply secure, so that the energy prices don't affect their economies adversely? Uh, Here in these two graphs, we see how up to 2050, the electricity generation from different technologies and fuels is expected to increase or decrease. It is certain that the contribution of coal is going to come down, and the contribution of offshore wind, onshore wind, solar, these are going to increase. And this is all because of the decarbonization. So this shows that here it is basically economic transition scenario. These curves have been taken from Bloomberg New Energy Finance. Basically, again, International Energy Agency also have the same views. So this shows basically there is a shift away from fossil fuels to renewables. Uh, in this slide, uh, this is for Western Australia. The typical amount of power that is dispatched by the grid during the day, that has been shown. So this is for 2024. This is how the typical amount of power dispatched by the grid, that is varying. So what we can see, that from the dawn onwards up to the dusk, up to afternoon first, the dispatches from the grid, they decrease, because the Western Australia and many other regions, they are increasingly moving towards the solar and other renewables. So during this period, the generation from solar increases. As a result, the demand from the grid reduces, and it becomes the minimum during the somewhere around the noon time. And once we reach the sunset, then generation from solar decreases, and as a result, the demand of firm power from the grid, that increases. So so as a result of this, the generation from, say, thermal power stations or other firm sources of power, that needs to be reduced during the daytime. But that reduction cannot be done up to any level, because if it is reduced, say, below 35% of the total grid capacity, then the entire grid system, it gets destabilized. And in order to make the grid stable, even though solar and wind, they may be in a position to supply more power during daytime, but that extra generation, for example, below this dotted line, has to be curtailed. And that generation from solar and wind, that becomes some sort of wasted electricity. And again, in the evening, since there is no generation from solar, and the demand for electricity increases because so many loads are connected to the grid, then the demand from the grid in terms of firm power, that has to be ramped up very fast. And as a result of this, stability issue by the transcos have to be handled very, very carefully. And here the role of energy storage becomes very, very important. And hydrogen could probably play some sort of an important role in terms of electricity or energy storage. Here in this particular slide, CO2 intensity versus cost of electricity for some 30 countries have been shown. On x-axis, we have cost of electricity in US dollar per kilowatt hour. Above this line, it is higher cost of electricity. Below this line, this is the lower cost of the electricity. On x-axis, we have CO2 intensity in grams of CO2 per kilowatt hour. Here, on the extreme right-hand side in the second quadrant, we have countries like South Africa, India, Poland, China, Saudi Arabia. So for these countries, the cost of electricity is extremely competitive. But on the other side, carbon dioxide intensity in grams of CO2 per kilowatt hour is very high, because these countries are still depending heavily on generation of electricity from fossil fuels and mainly from coal. When we come to this third quadrant, we have countries like Brazil, Kenya, France. So these countries, they have not only the lower cost of electricity, but their CO2 intensity is also low. And that is the desirable kind of a thing in terms of generation of electricity, and how we can really not affect the climate adversely. These countries are mainly, for example, France is heavily dependent on nuclear. Brazil, it's dependent on the large hydro and modern renewables. So that makes their electricity relatively highly green. On this fourth quadrant, we have countries like Germany, Italy, UK, etc., where in terms of CO2 intensity, they are somewhere in between the countries which are there in the third quadrant and the countries which are in the second quadrant. But their cost of electricity is extremely high, because these countries have made rapid strides in moving towards renewable energy and generating electricity from renewables. So as a result of that, their cost of electricity have gone up. And here, since their dependence on renewable electricity has increased significantly, energy storage is very, very critical for them if they want to have stable supply of electricity. The size of the balloon that shows how much is the production of electricity, and this cost is basically the cost of electricity which is there charged from the domestic consumers. So, in summary, because of the rapid economic growth and increasing population, the demand for energy is growing. Since globally and most of the countries, they are still dependent on fossil fuels. Greenhouse gas emissions, they continue to grow in absolute terms, and that is affecting our climate adversely. And we have seen how unpredictable are the international prices of liquid fossil fuels. And this is prompting the major countries and even smaller countries to make energy security as the main policy instrument. And for ensuring energy security, they are shifting away from the fossil fuels because not all the countries, they have the local supplies of the fossil fuels, and they are putting increasing emphasis on renewables. But we have seen what is the one of the problems that is faced when we have the increasing penetration of renewables. There are times when there is a generation from the solar or wind, but it cannot be fed into the grid, and that results in curtailment. So that curtailed power could be utilized for generation of hydrogen, which can be stored, and subsequently that hydrogen can be used for power generation again whenever there is less generation from renewable sources. In order to have some fairly reliable energy storage system, in order to balance energy systems with increasing penetration of renewable power, a lot of energy storage options are being not only put into the field, but new energy storage mediums are also being developed. Pumped hydro is the most preferred energy storage solution that is being promoted globally. But hydrogen is also being talked considerably in both in terms of medium and long-term energy storage. And most importantly, hydrogen is a versatile energy carrier, and it can be very easily converted into derivatives like methanol, ammonia, etc., which can be transported from one country or continent to other countries and continents. So let us now discuss some basics about hydrogen. Hydrogen is basically a Greek word which means maker of water. And one of the earliest known chemical property of hydrogen that was known to scientists is that it burns with oxygen and forms water. Henry Cavendish given the credit for discovering hydrogen. At standard conditions, hydrogen is a gas of diatomic molecule having a formula H2. It is colorless, odorless, tasteless, non-toxic, and highly combustible. So these properties, they become important from safety consideration when we handle or utilize or produce hydrogen. Hydrogen rarely occurs in the nature, or it is not found in the nature. Its concentration in air is only 0.01%, that is about 100 ppm. It is available on Earth in bound form, that is in water, in all fossil fuels, organic matters, humans, animals, etc. It has got the highest gravimetric energy content among all known fuels. It needs to be produced from different primary energy sources. Molecules of hydrogen, they have very high velocity than other gases at a given temperature. It diffuses very fast than any other gas due to its lower molecular weight, and that is a positive characteristics that helps in safety aspect. Uh, it has got the highest heat conductivity, so that makes it a suitable say medium as a coolant in generators, electricity generators in thermal power plants. It releases energy and forms water on reaction with air, making it a ultimate green fuel. These are some physical properties of hydrogen. Its density is 1/10 of natural gas, 0.089 kg per meter cube. It is the lightest element. When we liquefy it, its liquefaction temperature is about 253 degrees Celsius minus. Its density is about 70.79 kg per meter cube. So in comparison to natural gas, it is very light. Its boiling point is very, very low, which is 90 degrees Celsius below than liquefied natural gas. Its energy content, that is lower heating value, is 3 times more than gasoline at 120.1 megajoule per kg. It's in terms of volume, the energy density is very low, that is 0.01 megajoule per liter, which is 1/3 of the natural gas. Its specific energy when it is liquefied is again 1/3 of LNG at 8.5 megajoule per liter. Its flame velocity is very high. It is 8 times of methane at 346 centimeter per second. So that is one thing which needs to be taken into consideration when we are designing some equipment where hydrogen is going to be utilized. Then its ignition range is very wide, 6 times wider than methane, with 4 to 77% in air. So it is again one property that needs to be taken into account, that even if small amount of hydrogen leaks in the air and there is some source of ignition nearby, then it becomes a safety hazard. Its ignition temperature is very high, so it is something which needs to be taken into account, those who are in the say business of designing say IC engines, and the ignition energy is very, very low. So from safety consideration, no spark needs to be there in the labs or wherever we are handling hydrogen in case there is a leakage. Now let us discuss about the various colors that are associated with hydrogen and what is the definition of green hydrogen. The numbers of colors that are associated with hydrogen, they are more than the colors which are there in the rainbow. It is called black when it is produced from reformation of coal. If it is a bituminous coal, then it is black. If it is a lignite, then it is called brown. Gray hydrogen is produced by steam methane reforming, and carbon dioxide is a byproduct which is allowed to be escaped into the environment. If we capture this carbon dioxide and store it, then it is called blue hydrogen. Green hydrogen is when we produce hydrogen by splitting water using renewable energy, that is which is produced from solar or wind, that is called green. Turquoise is when we produce methane, when we produce hydrogen from methane pyrolysis, where it is some sort of a dissociation. methane gets dissociated in carbon and hydrogen. So carbon dioxide doesn't escape and doesn't get produced. If hydrogen is produced by electrolysis using nuclear power, then it is called, say, pink hydrogen. And some hydrogen is now being talked that we can produce it from geological sources. That is called white hydrogen. There is no universally agreed definition of hydrogen as yet because there are no international green hydrogen standards. And as a result of that, some international organizations like IEA and IRENA, etc., they do not associate any colors with hydrogen, and instead they use a term called low carbon or low emission hydrogen. Definition for green hydrogen is under development, considering renewable pathways for production with associated CO2 emission. And one proposed definition of green hydrogen is hydrogen that is produced through electrolysis of water with 100% or near 100% renewable energy, close to zero greenhouse gas emission, that is less than or equal to 1 kg of CO2 equivalent per kg of hydrogen produced, taking into account the average value for 1 year. So this is some definition which has been proposed. Unless and until there is some agreement on this definition, it is only a proposal. India has come out with a green hydrogen standard, and here the value which was indicated in the last slide as 1 kg of CO2 equivalent per kg of hydrogen. Here the value is less than 2 kg of CO2 equivalent per kg of hydrogen. And the Indian definition takes into account both aspects of hydrogen production, one through electrolysis and other through biomass conversion. And when electrolysis route is being considered, it assumes that electricity which is generated from renewable sources and which is stored, that can also be utilized, and it will be considered as green hydrogen. And there is a policy, incentive where the green electricity can be banked, and if some developer is utilizing the banked electricity, green electricity, so that would also be termed as green hydrogen, but it has to be in accordance with the applicable regulations. And Bureau of Energy Efficiency has been appointed as the nodal agency for this purpose. They will come out with some kind of a document that how this value of 2 kg of CO2 equivalent per kg of hydrogen would be arrived at. Let us now discuss about global hydrogen market landscape. What is the demand? During 2023, the global hydrogen demand was estimated at 97 million ton, and of this, 75 million ton was pure hydrogen, and 20 million ton was with some sort of a mixture where carbon monoxide or carbon dioxide was present, and which is basically used for methanol production and steel making. In addition to it, 30 million ton of hydrogen is produced in the industry, and that is used for heat and electricity generation. But here the purpose is not to generate hydrogen per se. So this 30 million ton is not taken into account in the value of 97 million ton. In addition, about 1 million ton of hydrogen is used in glass making, electronics, and metal processing. And In terms of its use, the 43 million ton was used by refineries, 32.4 million ton was used for ammonia synthesis, followed by 16.2 million ton for methanol production, 5.4 million ton for steel making by direct reduction of iron, and 0.3 million ton for other applications. Still, almost the entire 97 million ton of hydrogen is produced using fossil fuels. Gray hydrogen utilizing natural gas is about 63.7%. About 20% of hydrogen was produced using coal, and this is mainly in China. 15% hydrogen was produced as a byproduct of naphtha reforming in petroleum refineries, and low emission hydrogen, that is blue hydrogen, its production was less than 1 million ton, and green hydrogen, that is electrolytic hydrogen, in 2023 it was less than 100 kiloton. In terms of country and region, China is the leading country with 28 million ton of hydrogen production, followed by North America 16 million ton, Middle East 14 million ton. India occupies the fourth position, 9 million ton, Europe 8 million ton, and rest of the world 23 million ton. This is some other source of how much blue hydrogen and green hydrogen is produced globally. I will not go into the detail. This is just to indicate that because some of the blue hydrogen might not have been taken into account in that 19.7 million ton. So when we see a blue hydrogen in the previous slide, it will not match. So this is only to tell the participants that there could be some variation with regard to how much blue hydrogen is being produced globally. What is the outlook for 2023? The projected demand in 2024 is going to be about 100 million ton. Total hydrogen demand in 2030 is expected to be about 150 million ton, of which about 16 million ton is expected to be produced by low emission sources. And there are different scenarios how much would be the requirement of green hydrogen if we follow this particular sequence based on projects announced. Then the requirement of hydrogen would be high. If we take into account projects undergoing feasibility studies, then this demand will come down. Then if we take into account committed projects, that is where either it is under construction or the final investment decision has been taken, then the amount of hydrogen required would be less. So if we take this last thing into the picture, then the committed projects, that is under construction or with FID, then the total demand for hydrogen would be about 3.4 million ton in comparison to 65 million ton. Okay, so this is giving some sort of information with regard to the outlook for low emission hydrogen and green hydrogen in 2030. Then let us come to hydrogen production methods and technologies. Hydrogen production methods, these can be broadly divided into those based on fossil fuels, and other is renewable sources. And in renewable sources, one is biomass process, other is water splitting. And in water splitting, the main focus is on electrolysis, where 4 technologies, that is anion exchange membrane, alkaline, solid oxide, and polymer electrolyte membrane electrolyzers. These are the 4 technologies which are currently being either used or are in demonstration in different stages. So I will not touch upon the other things because of the paucity of time. This is basically hydrogen production from fossil fuels. We need a hydrogen source, which is hydrocarbon, which could be coal, liquid hydrocarbon, that is oil, natural gas. Then if it is coal, it has to be gasified. If it is liquid, it has to be first desulfurized. Similarly, natural gas, first it has to be desulfurized. Here also, after gasification, cleaning and desulfurization takes place. And then after desulfurization, reforming takes place. And since carbon monoxide and hydrogen is produced in the reforming process, in order to increase the yield of hydrogen, carbon monoxide is made to react with the steam to have more hydrogen. So that is called a water gas shift reaction. So this is basically the steam reforming reaction, where for example, methane is made to react with steam, and we get carbon monoxide and hydrogen. This is basically gray hydrogen, and as I mentioned, if we capture carbon dioxide, then it becomes blue hydrogen. This is basically a schematic where the methane is being fed to the feedstock purification unit, and then here steam is added. After purification, it goes to a reformer, and then we get syngas, hydrogen, and CO. Then a shift reaction takes place at high temperature. Some of the CO gets converted into CO2 and hydrogen when it reacts with the steam, and then it is sent to a low temperature shift reactor where additional or residual CO gets converted, and then CO2 is removed, and finally 99.99% or 99.99% purity hydrogen is produced. The major interest technology in the green hydrogen domain happens to be electrolyzer. And water electrolyzer are nothing but electrochemical devices that are used to split water molecule into hydrogen and oxygen using electricity. And then electrolyzer, the smallest unit is cell, which is core of the electrolyzer, where electrochemical process takes place. It comprises of 2 electrodes separated by an electrolyte. In between, there could be a membrane or a diaphragm. Then when we add cells, it becomes a stack. Cells are connected in series. And then there are other systems that are needed for cooling, hydrogen purification, compression, then supplying DC power, supplying demineralized water. So all these put together, these are called balance of plant. As I mentioned, there are 4 types of electrolyzers: alkaline electrolyzer, proton exchange membrane electrolyzer, solid oxide electrolyzer, and anion exchange membrane electrolyzer. In the alkaline electrolyzer, water is introduced at the cathode side, and we get hydrogen and OH ion. And OH ion at anode, that gets converted into oxygen and water. And in PM electrolyzer, water is introduced at the anode, where oxygen and hydrogen proton and 4 electrons are produced. And at the cathode, we get hydrogen. Here, basically, the four types are shown. Alkyne and AEM. Here, OH ion is in the alkyne electrolyzer. The electrode, that is cathode and anode, they are separated by a diaphragm, and the OH ion moves from cathode to anode. Similarly, in AEM electrolyzer, OH ions move from the cathode to anode, but here instead of a diaphragm, a membrane is used. Here also in PM electrolyzer, membrane is used between the cathode and anode, and from anode, hydrogen proton moves from anode to cathode. And in SOEC, the oxygen ion that travels from cathode to anode. So in nutshell, this is the structure of the four electrolyzer and how the reaction takes place at anode and cathode. Electrolyzers, they basically evolved in many years. In fact, electrolyzers, they are known for nearly 2 centuries. The technology has fundamentally remained almost same. However, there are different trends that have affected development, broadly divided into 5 generations. Okay, I will skip these slides, and I'll come to a concluding slide. Basically, the first generation deals with how the alkaline technology that got developed, which was basically used for generating hydrogen using cheap electricity produced from hydro electric projects, and then that hydrogen was basically used for making ammonia. And these units were basically operating at atmospheric pressure. These were made for continuous operation and operated under steady state conditions. And initially there was asbestos diaphragm that was used, but at that time the health related issues of asbestos were not known. Subsequently, zirconium oxide, zircon, was developed, and that was used as the separator or diaphragm. Till early 1940s, only the atmospheric pressure alkaline electrolyzers were used. Lonza was the first company that introduced pressurized alkaline electrolyzers. This kind of a technology was used in chloralkali units, where the purpose is to get chlorine. In India, the purpose is to get caustic soda, and in the process, hydrogen is a byproduct. Subsequently, then the polymer chemistry breakthrough happened. DuPont, it discovered a material which had both excellent thermal and mechanical stability, and then it had also excellent ionic properties, which made the transport of protons possible. So this formed the basis of PM electrolysis, and it made many things easier, because it was able to use pure water instead of using KOH. And General Electric was the first company that developed PM electrolyzers. Subsequently, other companies in Germany like Siemens and ABB also developed. And these PM kind of electrolyzers were mainly used in the space program and in the submarine. Subsequently, when the space race that became somewhat slower, then the idea was to how to make electrolyzer cheaper, how to make them useful for other applications, and how really the cost can be decreased, its useful life can be increased. And this thing happened during 1980 to 2010. And during that time, the alkaline technology was also redesigned for smaller pressurized stacks. And the fourth generation is basically from 2010 to 2020, when the PV and wind installed capacity that multiplied several fold. As a result of that, the cost of generation of electricity came down appreciably. And then since electricity happens to be the main cost of green hydrogen production, how really these two could be integrated so that green hydrogen can be produced. That was something which was attempted in the fourth generation. And now from 2020 onwards, the idea is to mainstream the electrolyzer technology. And now the size is increasing from megawatt to gigawatt scale. And the goal is to reduce the cost and increase its useful life. And this will require economies of scale. And really, if we are able to reduce the cost and increase durability, green hydrogen could be a game changer in the coming years. This is basically summarizing all first, second, third, fourth, and fifth generation electrolyzer development. Here, basically, the alkaline electrolyzer, we have this end plate or bipolar plate, then anode catalyst, then a gasket, diaphragm or separator, then cathode and this gasket, and this is another end plate or bipolar plate. So that's how one cell is made. And this is electrolyzer where DM water is fed to a electrolyzer tank, and through transformer and rectifier, DC power is fed to the electrolyzer. Hydrogen and oxygen are produced. Some amount of electrolyzer goes along with the gases, which is separated in these separators. Then there is some moisture, some oxygen that is removed in demister and deoxidizer. And finally, we get a pure hydrogen. Depending on the requirement, it is compressed or stored. Diaphragm is made of zircon. As I mentioned, it is a porous composite separator material made of polysulfone matrix and zirconium oxide, which is present as a powder. Electrolyte is potassium hydroxide. Electrode catalyst is nickel mesh. Bipolar plate is nickel coated stainless steel.
అది అప్పుడు మనకి కొటేషన్ ఇచ్చాడు కదా స్లావియా వాడు ఇచ్చాడు కదా అప్పుడు అది
హలో any
Sorry sir.
Okay. So I have explained the functions of different subsystems, so I will not explain this again. This is the main components of a single cell of PM electrolyzer. Here, this is anode. Then we have a porous transport layer, and then in between a membrane, and then cathode catalyst, and a porous transport layer on the cathode side, and a cathode catalyst. And we produce hydrogen here, oxygen here. Proton exchange membrane, the membrane material is Nafion, which is made by DuPont. This is a proprietary material. Electrode catalyst on anode side is iridium oxide. On cathode side, it is platinum. This porous transport layer, anode side, we have titanium to ensure gas, water transport, and the electric charge transfer. On cathode side, we have carbon paper, titanium to ensure transport of hydrogen. Bipolar plates on anode side, it is titanium plus platinum coating. And on cathode side, we have titanium plus gold coating. This is solid electrolyte cell electrolyzer. We have cathode interconnect, then cathode, electrolyte, anode, and anode interconnect. Cathode, it is nickel yttria stabilized zirconia. Here, this reaction where where steam plus two electrons, they react to make hydrogen plus oxygen ion. Oxygen ion moves through the electrolyte to anode where oxygen is produced. This electrolyte is yttria stabilized zirconia, and the anode is lanthanum strontium magnet. So this is in pictorially how this SOEC looks like. This is a separator metal. Here steam is coming. On the cathode side, hydrogen is produced. The oxygen ions moves through the electrolyte to anode side where oxygen is produced. This is one single cell. When number of cells are connected in series, we get the stack. This is anion exchange membrane electrolyzer. We have, this is cathode, in between membrane, and then this is anode. Cathode, this is nickel iron oxide, and the reaction which is taking place at cathode is water is getting converted into hydroxyl ion plus hydrogen. Then this is anode, which is nickel. Here the oxygen gets produced. The membrane is solid polymeric membrane. Operating temperature is of the order of 20 to 80 degrees Celsius, and the OH ion that gets transported from cathode to anode through this this membrane. So this is how the schematic looks like. The heart of the electrolyzer is membrane, which is made of a polymer, and it is permeable to OH ion, but it doesn't allow hydrogen or other things to move. Why this AEM here, AEM electrolyzer could be a game changer? Because alkaline electrolyzer, though it is a mature and relatively inexpensive technology, it cannot be used for producing high pressure hydrogen due to porous diaphragm, and that would make hydrogen and oxygen mixing. PM electrolyzer, they rely on expensive noble metal catalyst coupled with use of Neptune membrane, which is also costly, and titanium stack components that are also expensive. So PM is a expensive electrolyzer. Alkaline has got some other issues. AEM integrates the positive features of alkaline and PM electrolyzer, such as inexpensive catalysts that are used in alkaline electrolyzer, solid polymer which is used in PM, but it is not as expensive membrane as used in PM. It operates in alkaline environment, thereby making use of non-noble metal catalyst possible. So we are trying to address this issue associated with PM, and polymeric membrane is used, which is relatively less expensive. Right now, only a few companies are making such type of electrolyzers, but hopefully, if the problems which are currently being faced in AEM, those are resolved, this could be a game changer technology in the coming years. This slide basically compares the 4 technologies. I think most of the things have been covered here. Capex general cell stack is expensive in PM. It has got lower installation cost due to compact size. In case of alkaline, cell stack is cheaper. Installation cost is high due to larger footprint. Its size is footprint is higher or greater than PM. Cell stack of SOEC is very expensive and steam source is required. The typical efficiency for these three electrolyzers, that is PM, AEM, and alkaline, these are more or less same range, but SOEC, the efficiency is quite high because a part of the energy is used in thermal form. So as a result of that, the requirement of electrical energy is lower as compared to other technologies. Here, I'll say that the alkaline technology is basically currently used in the industry in ammonia, refining, steel, chemicals. PM is being used for distributed hydrogen production. SOEC, where low purity hydrogen may be required, where cogeneration with high temperature steam is available. AEM could be more useful for distributed hydrogen generation or grid balancing. This is established technology. Alkaline PM is catching up very fast. SOEC is in the laboratory or early commercial stage. Anion exchange is new kid on the block. It is expected that a substantial reduction in the cost of these electrolyzer technologies is going to happen in next 6-7 years. So let us hope how close these projections are achieved so far as the cost goals are indicated for these technologies up to 2030. For anion exchange, we don't have much information about the cost of these things. Alkaline it's cost effective, mature, no platinum group catalysts are used, low current density, that is the disadvantage, corrosive electrolyte. PM is simple cell design, small footprint, high current density is used, differential pressure, that is hydrogen and oxygen can be produced at different pressures. So the advantage is that we can get hydrogen at a higher pressure. So as a result of that, the compressor may not be needed. This is more suited to for integrating with the renewable energy sources where the output could be variable. So it can accept the variable output of the energy source very easily. And currently, these two are, that is alkaline and PM. These are two electrolyzer technologies that are being used, or that are being promoted more vigorously. Green hydrogen production through electrolysis is highly energy intensive. Alkaline and PM electrolyzers, they have efficiency of the order of 50 to 68%. Therefore, they consume about 47 to 66 kilowatt hours per kg of hydrogen. Comparatively, efficiency of SOEC electrolyzer is higher, and AM electrolyzer, since it is under development, it is low. This is the global electrolysis status. The installed electrolysis capacity at the end of 23 was 1.4 gigawatt. 55% of this was based in China. and by the end of 2024, the electrolysis capacity is expected to be 5 gigawatt. And China is going to be the main production center in the near future. And alkaline technology is dominating right now, since it is having a share of about 60%, whereas PM has got share of about 22%. The largest capacity electrolyzer, which is of 260 megawatt capacity, that has been installed in China by one oil and gas company. Electrolysis capacity could be in the range of 230 to 520 gigawatt by 2030, where it would be operational about 17% in Africa, Latin America also 17%. Europe and Australia are also going to be the major hubs. China, Northern America, India could be other major markets. By 2030, nearly 75% of the projects of about 1 gigawatt capacity would be implemented, that take up to 3 years to start the operation from date of FID. May I know how much more time I have, because some time was taken by the chief guest?
Yes, sir. Actually, that you can take another 2 minutes. That other speaker also joined, sir. If you don't mind, we'll have 1 minute for question and answer.
Okay.
Is it okay?
At least 5 minutes?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So by 2030, China is going to have about 30% of the electrolyzer manufacturing share, followed by Europe and USA. Alkaline technology is going to dominate even in 2030, having 55% market share. This is one cartoon. When everyone digs for gold, they make shovels. So now everybody is talking about green hydrogen and green ammonia. So all the major companies, whether it is Reliance, Adani, or Indian Oil, they are moving towards green hydrogen or green ammonia. Some other technologies which are low emission that are used are biomass gasification, then thermochemical route using nuclear or solar heat, and biological options. As I mentioned, natural hydrogen, which is a geological hydrogen, is also emerging, and world's only documented hydrogen producer well is in Mali, with a production rate of about 1500 meter cube per day, which is about 0.1 tons per day of hydrogen. Hydrogen production key points: yes, fossils can be used, but renewable is going to be the main driving force in the coming years. Hydrogen storage and application. Hydrogen can be stored in physical based form, that is compressed gas, cold cryo compressed, and liquid hydrogen, or material based, that is in adsorbent, liquid organic hydrides, interstitial hydrides, complex hydrides, and chemical hydrogen, that is ammonia, borane, etc. There are 4 different types of hydrogen cylinders that are used for hydrogen storage, that is type 1, type 2, type 3, type 4. Type 1 cylinders are used for pressure up to 200 bar, type 2 300 bar, type 3 700 bar, type 4 700 bar. They can have the weight percent storage capacity ranging from 1.7 to 5.7%. So type 3 and type 4 cylinders are considered good for automotive applications. For hydrogen transportation and delivery, for transport and delivery, pipelines, tube trailers, and liquid hydrogen delivery methods could be employed. And these are the actual things. So far as use of hydrogen is concerned, Hydrogen is used in industry for ammonia synthesis, petroleum refineries, iron and steel, food processing, petrochemicals, synthetic fuel production, float gas, manufacturing, semiconductor. In transport, it can be used both in IC engine vehicles and in fuel cell vehicles. For power generation, hydrogen could be a storage medium for both variable solar and wind power. It can be used for grid and off-grid power generation and cooling of generators in thermal power plants. In buildings, it can be used for combined heat and power, then heating, cooking, cooling, etc. Let us come to the concluding slide. I had to hurry in the end. Hydrogen is an important energy vector for global decarbonization and especially for hard to abate sectors. Hydrogen has some unique properties and hydrogen energy system must be designed keeping them in mind. More than 98% of global hydrogen demand is met by gray hydrogen presently. Electrolyzer is a key technology for producing low carbon hydrogen from water using renewable electricity. Alkaline electrolyzers will continue to be dominant technology in coming years. For integration with variable renewable energy, PM electrolyzer is a key technology. However, use of platinum group materials in its manufacturing makes it a costly technology. AEM may emerge as a futuristic electrolyzer technology. One thing which was highlighted by the chief guest, that is R&D efforts are needed, and R&D efforts needed for improving efficiency, useful life, and reducing capex and opex cost of electrolyzers for ushering in green hydrogen revolution. So all those participants who want to undertake R&D, they should keep these things in mind, how they can improve the efficiency, how can they make the electrolyzers more useful, how can we reduce the cost of the electrolyzer, how can we reduce the operating cost of these electrolyzers. And if we are talking in terms of the hydrogen economy, then economic storage and distribution of hydrogen is important, and its widespread utilization would become feasible only when all these things are taken care of. With that, I conclude my presentation, and I'll be happy to take a few questions which, as per the time available by, the organizers, they permit.
So we can go for 2 question and answers. So probably that is okay, sir.
Okay,
So audience, if you have any questions, 2 participants, if you have any questions, please most welcome. If you ask questions, please you can switch on your camera, then probably it will be interactive.
I really
participants.
Or if you have received some question in the chat box, you can
yes sir, yes sir,
you can read from the chat box some important questions.
Any questions? If you are able to not able to ask,
Dr. Suresh has raised a hand.
433493891. Good evening, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, I just wanted to know what is the electricity requirement to produce 1 kg of hydrogen, this green hydrogen actually.
I mentioned this in my presentation. Depending on the efficiency of the electrolyzer, it could be anywhere from, say, about 50 to 65 units of electricity are needed for producing 1 kg of hydrogen. One can take a value of around 52 to 55 units.
Oh, okay. All SOC, PM, and any.
Oh, PM. This value is not applicable for SOEC. SOEC would be of the order of around 40 or even less than that.
Achha. So the different electrolyzers have different energy requirements.
Yeah, you can work back depending on what kind of a efficiency some manufacturer is quoting for a particular electrolyzer.
Okay, okay, okay. Thank
Sir,
you very much.
Okay.
thank
I, I,
you. There is one question, sir, then we can wind up. So what is the scope of producing hydrogen from biomass in future? That is one Mr. Iyer Murthy is asking the question in the chat box.
Okay, I could not discuss that slide in detail. If it is a solid biomass, then probably we can go in for gasification route, where it could be oxy steam gasification, which has been done by ISC Bangalore. So we would get same uh, say hydrogen, carbon monoxide, and nitrogen, and then this can be followed by water gas shift reaction to convert CO into more hydrogen and CO2. The other option is where we are having some kind of a waste, say municipal waste or even agro waste in vegetable waste, kitchen waste, where in the waste we have some glucose. So through anaerobic digestion route, hydrogen can be produced. In anaerobic route, generation of methane is suppressed and generation of hydrogen is promoted through selection of the right kind of a design. And on this particular aspect, a lot of work has already been conducted by many academic led by IIT Kharagpur and Indian Institute of Chemical Technology, Hyderabad.
Thank you, sir, Dr. Nouni, sir. I think we can.
Hello.
Sir, there is a time limit. If you have any questions, please you can pull up us. Then other speaker is on the line. So now I thank on behalf of the organizing committee, Dr. M.R. Nouni, sir, is giving your wonderful talk to cover with the drivers of hydrogens and basics of hydrogens and various electrolysis that hydrogen production method, where the new method it's an amine chain membrane field, electrolysis. It is it's a new thing. It is an even in what we call it in summarizing the things, it is having the potential to work for what we call it and further in this domain. So thank you, sir. Thank you so much for giving an insight. There is one more session Dr. N.R. Nouni is going to give by day after tomorrow. So now I thank Nouni, sir, for your contribution on this evening time to share with our participants. It's really informative. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor Ishwaramurthy, for giving me this opportunity.
It is my pleasure, sir, to work with you. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Now, so we are coming to that session 2, where Professor Kannan Iyer, sir, is a senior professor. I think sir is joined with an IIT Jammu. Earlier, sir was with an IIT Mumbai. Now he is a senior professor at IIT Jammu, like to work on this hydrogen safety or hydrogen management. Sir, Kannan,
can I ask a question?
Sir, Ankur, so already that speakers is in waiting, sir. Don't miss it.
It's okay if he wants a question. It's okay now. No
okay,
problem.
thank you.
I can adjust it. No problem.
Yeah, Ankur, could you ask questions?
Sir, since we know that India is producing the power mainly based on the coal, so how can we see that hydrogen can scale up to the level of similar to that of the coal?
No, coal is in a hydrocarbon fuels, where this in hydrogen is a fuel, it's a non-hydrocarbon fuel. The generation method is different. That is a new technologies. Even in green hydrogen,
Sir,
it's coming.
My question is, sir, since we are producing mainly power based on coal, in India we are basically producing the electricity through coal-based power plant. So how can we scale up the, how can we transit from coal to hydrogen, and
Yeah,
that
that,
on a very large scale?
yeah, so we will see the next is sorry, what do you call it? And tomorrow the speaker will talk about the transients from the conventional to green hydrogen things. So that time the speaker will address your questions, sir. No problem.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for your questions. Now it is my time to the session two. Professor Kannan Iyer sir is with us today. He joined us. Thank you, sir. So no need of introduction about Kannan Iyer sir. Currently, sir is working as a senior professor at IIT Jammu in Department of Mechanical Engineering. Earlier, sir was associated with IIT Mumbai. So, sir is expert in the nuclear energy and hydrogen management, the things. So it is very honor to welcome on behalf of my university. So I welcome you, sir. So now I hand over the session to Professor Kannan Iyer, sir.
Thank you, Professor Ishwarmurthy. I hope I'm audible and my video is also visible, I guess.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm just trying to share my screen. Is it visible, my screen?
Yes, sir. It's visible, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'll also get a pointer. Okay, good evening, everybody. This is Kannan here. I think thank you so much for the introduction. This talk, which I'm going to talk about, my audio is clear, right?
Clear, sir. Very clear.
Thank you. So the topic is on safety issues in hydrogen management. Basically, I work in the domain of nuclear engineering, and one of our problem is the hydrogen generation due to an accident. Okay, so this research which I'm going to talk about is mostly done for how to prevent or consume hydrogen when there is generation of hydrogen. So I also did a little bit of work to understand, because with so much of hydrogen energy being talked about, and whether there are issues of hydrogen accidents and hydrogen leakages, etc. So the way that I have arranged this talk is that we will typically look at the issues that could be posed by hydrogen technology, particularly from not from the use and generation, but from the point of view of leakages and the problems which hydrogen can accumulate, and whether it could give any issue, and whether we can have some ways and means of trying to reduce the hydrogen concentration by some passive means, so that it automatically keeps the hydrogen level to a level so that we will not get fires or detonation. So the way I would start off is I'll start with the issues posed by hydrogen, and then look at some statistics on hydrogen accidents, so that whether it's a real issue and what kind of issues that can come due to hydrogen is something which I will just present very short manner. Then we will look at the major problem. Basically, when hydrogen is released, it starts diffusing into the atmosphere wherever the hydrogen is present. For example, if it is inside a hall, inside a room, or in open atmosphere, it will basically start spreading itself, and it goes both by diffusion and by convection, or we can even call it dispersion of hydrogen. That means it gets dispersed or distributed, and then depending on how the concentration is, when can probably ignition occur, what are the levels at which such ignition occur. Now, more than anything, can we do something about ensuring that we can prevent combustion accidents by having some passive, say, auto catalytic recombiner type? Even if some hydrogen leakage is there, it will be absorbed and it will be taken care of, and it does on its own, so that we don't have to do any special action for that. So I will rely on the case study which we had carried out for a nuclear reactor particularly, which we did for Baba Atomic Research Center. And so this study is kind of slightly different than probably most of the talks which you will hear, but maybe this also becomes a part of hydrogen management so that we can get an idea, and you can probably get into see how this business of hydrogen dispersion and prediction methodologies, etc., are involved. To that extent, it is very useful, I would think. Hydrogen technology is kind of now, I think you must have heard that we are trying to achieve carbon neutrality, and so it is going to play an important role. So we do not have to, I do not have to say anything in this particular direction, and a lot of emphasis. In fact, the very fact that the entire program, we have about 4 or 5 days of presentation on this aspect, gives the importance of the issue. So basically what I am going to present is to look at some safety issues and some interesting results which we got, and what so that it gives you some kind of a perspective. So to begin with, I have just looked at some of the accidents that have occurred, and what are their causes, and typically what are the various issues that can occur. But for most part of it, we'll talk about the predictive methods of hydrogen diffusion and dispersion, and get some physical insights into these hydrogen management problems so that it doesn't pose any accidental issue. So the hydrogen mixture, I think I don't have to say this, everybody knows it is very highly combustible, and it's over a wide range of concentration, all the way from 4% to about 75%. Just typically, the total time will be about what, an hour or 45 minutes?
Sir, yes, sir. 1 hour, sir. 1 hour.
So I will. So my clock is shown on the screen. So I will typically try to take 45 minutes. That means by 9 o'clock we will stop for any questions. Okay, so remember what I said is it has a huge range from all the way from 4% concentration to 75% concentration. We can have combustion or detonation depending on the scenario. Also, what happens is hydrogen tries to accumulate. That is, what happens is it's a light gas, so it has severe buoyancy, so it very quickly rises to the roof and starts accumulating there, unless we take some action to take care of that. And typically, it becomes a combustible mixture right from about, say, 4%, as I have just pointed out. And the ignition energy, or the amount of energy required to ignite it, is very less. For example, you must have heard in Fukushima, when some hydrogen accumulated, they were trying to vent it. So even in the process of venting it, the hydrogen ignited, and it creates a nuisance there. That is what led to the accident. So therefore, typically hydrogen is a very difficult fellow to deal with. So better not to accumulate the hydrogen, preferably. So what kind of safety measures one can take? That is what we are trying to look at. Of course, it can be ignited by sparks, but it can be ignited even by hot surfaces which may be there, or it can even be ignited, for example, you are trying to release from the friction and that itself is enough to ignite the hydrogen. So therefore, better to avoid hydrogen buildup rather than worry about. So here, when engineering systems are made, they are appropriately taken care of, but quite often the problem is leakages which happen from the system and which can create a problem. So to get some kind of an idea on various accidents that might have occurred, so I looked at a paper by Yang, which is a reasonably recent data. So he had analyzed about 200 accidents from US, and as you know, the largest contribution has been in the laboratories. So the problem generally, of course, these statistics you can peacefully look at. I will make this presentation available so that it can be distributed. But I will stick to main points only here. So typically what we'll see is the major cause is in the laboratories. Typically, when we make experiments, research, etc., which we are doing, often, we are not very particular to make equipments, etc., of of a very high caliber, because quite often we make some very quick assemblies and start doing it. So therefore, remember, in hydrogen, we cannot play with it, so you have to be very careful. So most of the accidents seems to have occurred in laboratories. So those who are really going to start new work on hydrogen have to be a little bit more careful about leakages, etc. Of course, in the if you see in the commercial facilities or in fuel handling stations, the percentages are not very high, and with more and more what do you call technology being used, and most of the problems would be taken care of. And to look at typically what are the sources of these hydrogen leakages, most of them are pipes, fittings, and valves that we all know. Because whenever you are assembling these, if you are not careful, it can give certain amount of problem. And so bulk of them is leakages through the joints, fittings, valves, etc. So yes, there is a fair contribution from the storage equipment. Quite often the relief valve not functioning properly or whatever, that can also be a cause. But in the hydrogen commercial facilities, when you are dispensing hydrogen, at times you are opening and closing things several times. So if they are not properly maintained, they can also create some minor problem. But they are not so much, and as more and more hydrogen is going to be used, it's fairly safe. We can handle them very easily. And the causes of accident often has been, the equipments are there, all safety measures are there, sometimes they fail. So the equipment failure is one of the main causes. Perhaps some valves have become loose, or we have not tried to maintain them a little bit, and we have been a little bit careless, or something of that order. And there have been some human errors, that is, not properly taking care of the procedure which has to be done. At times, that's about 10 to 14% of that order. And by and large, the systems are designed well, but some quick design, some design flaws have also been stated. And one of there is a significant contribution. Remember, for everything there will be a standard operating procedure which you have to evolve, and particularly when you are dealing with hydrogen, you better be very careful, as otherwise it can lead to main problem. I wouldn't say disaster, it can lead to problems. So even about 10% is even caused by not following the standard operating procedure. Now, what are the consequences which have come? All this is from the statistics which has been collected. And so typically, whenever there's a fire or any small thing, the equipment failure is the equipment is lost. So that is the major loss often. But many small scale fires, nothing happens. So therefore, if you see, equipment failure is the major, and the next one is mostly small fires which have occurred, and they have not contributed to any major problem. There have been some fires, some minor injuries have happened, some burns, and in very extreme cases there can be human loss of life. Sorry, that is supposed to be life, I'm sorry. And that's only about 5%. And I'm sure as we take more and more care, and this can be reduced substantially. So therefore, the point which I want to make is, hydrogen technology is great, everything is good, but we have to be very careful. Now, some physics. So whenever, just now we said that when you release hydrogen, remember the hydrogen will tend to go up. Now, if I have hydrogen released at a very high velocity, then we call it as a jet. So it will basically go, because the momentum is so high, so the buoyancy is unable to do. So there may be a small movement, but that it's predominantly, let us say, the direction with which it is ejected. If you take some, the velocity is decreased, so you see a combination of both of them. And remember, the velocity is high at the inlet, and as it spreads out, the velocity will decrease, and then the buoyancy starts playing a role. When the velocity decays sufficiently, the whole thing deflects and moves up. If the velocity is much smaller, it moves even quickly. So I'll show some cases where we will direct a jet down, then also it can actually turn around and move up and start accumulating. So the parameter which decides how much of buoyancy versus momentum is called the Froude number. The Froude number definition here is the velocity at the exit divided by GD. D is the opening of the diameter or the length scale, and this is delta rho. That means the atmospheric air density minus the hydrogen density divided by the hydrogen density. It is GD delta rho by rho. This is a non-dimensional parameter. This is, if you see the velocity is high, the Froude number will be high. If the velocity is low and the buoyancy is high, then the Froude number will be low. To get you an idea, I've just taken this picture. As you see that when you have Froude number of the order of 1000, it is almost a pure jet, totally going in the horizontal direction or in the direction in which it is ejected. And when it is of the order of, say, between 10 to 1000, both the buoyancy as well as momentum starts playing a role. When Froude number is less than 10 or moving towards of the order of 1, you basically see it is buoyancy dominated. It rises very fast. It goes up. So in all this, how does it spread? How does it move? Can all be done by solving what are called the Navier-Stokes equations. So I have deliberately avoided putting lots of equations here. So I have put everything in terms of, this is a zero equation presentation by and large. Maybe here there's a definition which I have used perhaps. But the overall idea is to minimize and make it a little more physical. And anyone who is more interested, I think in the opening slide, I have my email ID. And there are some papers if they want. I can give you whatever this presentation, the later part of it, where whatever research I'm quoting, these have been published, and I'll be very happy to share it with you people. Okay, so typically when a jet is released, it can be turbulent. For example, this is a turbulent jet, or it can be a laminar jet. Okay, so remember, turbulent jet means the thing, there is a spreading, and the spreading is little larger, whereas here the spreading is little smaller. You see the transverse dimension is not very high, and here there is a lot of entrainment of ambient air which is going. So therefore here the thing is the concentration can be high, and so this when you have a laminar one, whereas when you have a turbulent one, it tries to engulf the ambient air, and you can basically get reasonable amount of mixing. These pictures have been obtained. These are taken from videos where they have taken about 50 pictures and taken an average of those. This is just to give you what happens physically when you have a system maybe in a closed environment and you have hydrogen which is being released. So a plume means the velocity is less and it is leaking, and generally what you will see, the hydrogen keeps going up and accumulated, and remember it will be mixed with the ambient air also. So usually you will see I have shown some kind of a concentration gradient here. So you will basically see that there is a strong the typical concentration gradient. What you see is fairly strong, let me put it that way. There is a good gradient. Whereas when you have a jet of hydrogen with lot of velocity, it tries to mix up things. So therefore you see the gradient is much smaller. And so therefore when you have a plume, there is a problem of accumulation. Yes, you might like to vent it, and appropriate action can be taken to ensure that the hydrogen accumulation is minimal. But there are cases where you want protection from atmosphere or any such thing. So you have to be careful, whichever is the hydrogen facility. If there are enclosed spaces, maybe we have to little bit worry about them. So typically when you try to fill a box, so what you will find is hydrogen rises up, the highest concentration will be at the top, and slowly the concentration will appropriately be coming down. The distribution, the accumulation, etc., can be modeled through appropriate mathematical equations using the computational fluid dynamics kind of an approach. And now there are standard software available like Fluent, etc., which can be used. So now a little bit on the cause of the ignition. So for example, these are the things which have been from the data, that at times, many times the cause itself is not very clear. So kind of speculated. So for example, because many times we really are not designing for combustion at those places. So it could be a reverse Joule-Thomson effect. That means, Joule-Thomson effect is when some gas is issuing from a jet, it cools down. Whereas here the reverse happens. It got heated, so the temperature can go up and that can cause fire. Or we can have some kind of an electrostatic when it is coming through a jet, and maybe the atmosphere has slight amount of, depending on whatever the processes which may be occurring in that room. If there are electrostatic charges that are present, maybe it's a tube light, maybe it's something else, and that can somehow trigger, and then the combustion can occur. Also, there are what they call as if it's going with a high velocity, and when some shocks are formed, and the expansions and the contraction can increase the temperature locally, and that can become sometimes a cause of ignition. Or it can be when you have a hot surface in which it comes in contact, and that can be a source of ignition. So therefore, by and large, the causes can, most of the time, it will be some kind of a spark or something coming from some of the equipment, or or maybe hot surface which is there, which is going to cause this kind of fire. So there are two technical terms. I'm sure most of you are probably familiar. If once it catches fire, and if it is in the laminar domain, usually the burning is quite smooth, and it is generally called the deflagration. Just like a Bunsen burner or something burning, it's basically this kind of a catching fire, and it's silent. It's basically called the deflagration. The motions, the velocities of both the gas and the combustion products, they are all in the subsonic regime, or it is less than the speed of sound. When the concentration of the hydrogen is a little bit higher, and when the flame occurs, then the flame tries to accelerate, and it can become turbulent. And when it tries to become turbulent, then essentially what it is going to cause is the rate at which it burns is going to be very large, because it is able to entrain the oxygen, etc., from the atmosphere, which can come. And if the concentration is reasonably high, then it can lead to what is called a detonation. That means a shock wave can be generated, and that can move at supersonic speeds. And when such kind of thing occurs, the damages are imminent, and it can kind of blow up the entire building wall, as it happened in Fukushima. So the whole business in all this is, can we prevent ignition, and what can be done to make sure that the ignition can be avoided. And what I have done is I have taken a case study where the problem here was something else, but it is to the context and it makes sense. So I brought it here, and Dr. Ishwamurthy felt that this can still fit into this domain. So that is why I'm here. So hopefully this case study, though it has nothing to do with the hydrogen technology as far as generation and all that, but it will be interesting to know that what are the various things that happen when we have hydrogen, and how do we mathematically handle them, how did we proceed, what are the problems that happens, and how we solve these problems one at a time, and eventually we were able to successfully complete this project. So first thing is, the hydrogen is going to mix with the ambient. That's what we have basically said. And for example, ultimately the buoyancy plays a substantial amount of role. So now when we look at the literature, we have to, when you are mathematically modeling, we are looking at some classes of problem where mixing is important. So for example, we have looked at the buoyant plume. Buoyant plume is a hot gas, for example, from a chimney released into the atmosphere, or diffusion flames where people have studied combustion. So we had collected some of the whole idea here was what kind of a model is more efficient, because particularly turbulence is something which is probably expected, and therefore what turbulence model has to be used. Remember, turbulence, we do not remember for laminar case, Navier-Stokes exactly describes, or Navier-Stokes exactly describes for very, very small scales, even in turbulent flow. But you can't do the calculation at such small scales. So therefore you have to model them. So when you model, what is the right kind of model we have to use? So therefore we look at the problems very similar to those, and then identify what kind of models people have used. There is also data available, for example, in room airflow ventilation. Remember, you are going to see that how the ventilation air, cold air which is being sent into the room, whether it is properly spreading, whether everybody is getting where to put the vent and where to put the input, so that the overall cooling of the room and the persons feel very happy about it. And also there have been hydrogen mixing studies which I have done by some previous investigators, we looked at all of them and to see what are the best models that may be available. From all, we more or less found out that the standard K epsilon model, which is modified by buoyancy, it's called the buoyancy modified K epsilon model, was found to be very successful in predicting the previous cases. So I'm not presenting many of them, though I will point out to something so that we have taken some experimental data from others and validated the same. So what we basically did was we first did a comparative exercise. Fluent, ANSYS Fluent is a software many of you may be familiar, and this does what is called the computational fluid, and it solves the Navier-Stokes equations and with various turbulence models that are basically present. So what we had done was, when we did the comparative study, we took an experiment which was carried out in Bhabha Atomic Research Center, and this facility was called the HIMIS facility. Basically what they do here, the problem is we have I will come to the context after a little while. So here the experiment was, you have a cylindrical vessel and you have hydrogen generated, and it is being diffused, or it is being sent into this vessel through some holes which are there in the pipe, like a circular pipe, and the holes are at the bottom, and hydrogen is being pushed into from the bottom direction, and eventually it rises, and there is going to be a concentration buildup of hydrogen over time. The radius of this vessel was about 1 meter, and the height of this was about 7 meters. These are what are called this is to simulate what is called a containment. I will come to that in a moment, what we mean by that. So obviously we did not generate all these holes individually. So we made an equivalent box type at that time so that the hydrogen can leak from all the 3 directions. And then this model we try to compare with the experimental data which they got. And the concentration of the hydrogen was measured, and the measured position was at Z equal to 3.5 meter, at R equal to 0.7 meter. If you really see, this is a 7 meter and this is a 1 meter vessel, so it was measured at around 0.7 meters, and the height, which is mid height. And so typically what we basically 60 degrees at a location where they had measured a vertical census. So this is the transient variation of hydrogen with time. So the injection was carried out up to certain time, after which the injection was stopped, and then you see how the concentration went up and then kind of remained constant at this place. So we were also able to compare it, and we had done with both standard K epsilon model and what is called the Reynolds shear stress model. And RSM takes much more time, but even standard K epsilon was doing a fairly good job. So therefore we felt that that is a good enough model. And we also got some experimental data which we could locate from what is called a Saclay facility in France. It is another cylinder. Only thing is this is a vented containment, whereas this was not the previous one. Here is a closed containment or closed vessel. And here again, the measurements were carried out at this location at different heights. And I have stated the diameter of the vessel is 2 meter, the height is 2.29 meter, and the inlet and outlet dimensions are specified. So here it is what is called a vented containment. And here again we predicted the transient thing at different points. So just to show one of the result, so that this is our prediction, and these are the this is the experimental data, and the line is our numerical prediction. It was doing fairly all right, though may not be the best, but still it is fairly all right as far as the prediction for a turbulent case is concerned. So we were kind of confident to see that we can use for in the containment. What is this problem? So this normally, whenever you think of a nuclear reactor, you will see a building which has a hemispherical kind of a top and a cylindrical vessel. So this usually this is the reactor. So the reactor, there are reactor components, and this is what is called the steam generator. Those are extraneous details. The idea is, the purpose of this building is in case of any accident. For example, the pipe starts leaking like hell, and all the steam goes away, and there is melting which is going to happen of the nuclear fuel. And in the beginning, when it gets hot, it is going to generate hydrogen because of the the clad, which is zirconium, reacts with steam to produce hydrogen. So the hydrogen will be released typically in what is called the fueling machine vault, and then it will move from compartment to compartment in the containment. So the whole idea here was, in fact, we did this work much before even Fukushima happened, because this was anticipated that such things can happen. So we had done this experiment, this numerical study. We got a BRNS project from BRC, and it was a joint exercise. We were going to use the so-called the ANSYS Fluent, and they were using one of their codes so that we can do intercomparison. So what this building is for, if anything happens, the entire contents of the nuclear reactor which comes out of it is going to be kept inside this building. That is why it's called the containment building, so that it contains any products which may come because of the accident. So here, as far as we are concerned, the hydrogen is released at this point. It is going to move from compartment to compartment and then eventually going to distribute itself. Now, there are two isolated parts, so our interest is only here when hydrogen is released and what happens to the distribution of hydrogen. So we had done this with these are the we have used tetrahedron mesh, and we have something about 1 million mesh for doing this computational fluid dynamic simulation, and appropriately the hydrogen was released, and then we can actually study the distribution of this hydrogen by using the standard K epsilon kind of a model, which we had identified to be a good idea because it was doing well from the experimental data. So the two problems which we had analyzed, one was the hydrogen was released at a constant rate. And remember, the rate was computed such that for the time it is released, the concentration will become, average concentration will be 4%, assuming that everything is mixed up. Whereas the other case was a variable mass flow rate, where I'll just show you the picture. That is, one is we can constantly release hydrogen and then stop. This is after say 1200 seconds or so, and the amount of hydrogen released is such that if we mix it thoroughly, it will be 4% in the containment. And the second one was they had given they had done certain simulations, and they had gotten that if this is the overall variation of the hydrogen release rate, then how this is going to happen. So here again, the total concentration, if everything is mixed, is of the order of about 4%. Okay. Now, we had basically used the Navier-Stokes equations to simulate the turbulent model. Just to give you the result, we had done 3 cases. One is the ejection is in the upward direction, but at the bottom of the containment building. And in the second case, we do it in the horizontal direction injection at the center of this compartment. And in the third case, we have taken that it is almost at the ceiling and it is ejected downwards. And now what you will basically see this after the thing has started, this is about 300 seconds of into the transient, and we basically see the distribution of hydrogen in the containment. Remember, it is trying to accumulate. The red one means very high concentration, and it is slowly building, and you see that there is a concentration build up here. Of course, this is where it is released, so it's obviously the concentration is fairly high. And here it accumulates at the top, and what you see is at the bottom it distributes everywhere reasonably well. So when it is in the middle, what you see is climbing up, but you know the bottom is almost like kind of an unaffected. So even here, for example, it is not able to penetrate all the way. So assuming that everything will mix in the whole room, etc., is a proposition which is not practical. So this is the we have done simulation over a long time, but I am just showing at 900 seconds, and you see the concentration is spreading into the room a little bit more if you relatively compare. So now you see that there is diffusion which is going on, so that it is occupying the room here, but here it is still taking some more time for the hydrogen to diffuse. But even at 1200 seconds, when we are going to more or less close the injection, so you can see that there is still some zones which are just unaffected, and hydrogen is accumulating here. Bulk of the places there is some motion of hydrogen, but it is very small overall. But that will depend upon the opening sizes and where all it is there and so on. And finally, even after the thing was over, and we essentially waited for a certain amount of time, 1600 seconds here, 1200 seconds was the injection time. What you can basically see is now there is a clear stratification of hydrogen overall, and near the roof, the concentration of hydrogen is the highest. So typically the concentration at the top of the dome was about 6.2%, which is higher than acceptable value for it to be. That means it can burn if there are sparks and other things which may be there. And remember, if there are fans and some other exhaust things, and it can trigger. And we had also done a case. This is for a Kaiga is a reactor. It is in Karnataka, and they had given a case that you do this kind of an injection rate for this particular reactor. So we had done that case, and then we basically see after the end of the thing, it's hardly there is mixing in the whole room. So therefore, the hydrogen injection, that is the hydrogen, whatever was injected was accumulated in the room, and so the assuming that it will go and spread in every one of these containment is not realistically correct. So the overall mixing is very poor. So this was one of the first studies which we had carried out along with BRC to know that hydrogen, yes, it rises, but it doesn't mix all that well very easily. So it can pose dangers appropriately. So the general conclusion we came out after this particular study was we could use the buoyancy modified K epsilon, which is a standard model in ANSYS Fluent. So we can use that. The stratification of hydrogen is seen, after injection, so that we have to do something to mix them up because the standard diffusion is not very good. And the concentration of hydrogen can be high. It doesn't mix uniformly, so that it can create concentrations which are high above the burning or the deflagration limit, so that we have to be worried about this hydrogen concentration. So therefore, for example, in a case like thing, what can we do something about, and how can we reduce the concentration of hydrogen? So the sum is that we have higher concentration, and particularly in the so-called the filling vault, where the mixing was very poor in the second case, where the concentration was of the order of about 20%. So it is really high, and we need to have something. So how do we? Probably either we have to mix the whole thing. We can use some active modes of running a fan, and remember, fans are they will have their brushes, carbon brushes will continuously evolve sparks. So there are appropriately issues. And there have been some people talking about having an evacuated chamber, so that whenever this happens, the reactor the whole thing can be connected. Those are very costly solutions. And many times you may not have an active mode of electricity which is available. So that what particularly which happened in Fukushima, it had a station blackout, means all power was lost in that particular case, and when that accident occurred. So therefore, in such cases, you can't rely on anything which is electrical. Then what exactly could be done? The answer appear to be the passive mitigation, that is, you use what is called the passive auto catalytic recombiner. So these are nothing but catalytic plates, typically of palladium, where the hydrogen adsorbs, and it basically has an appropriate reaction going on, and so that the autocatalytic temperature, the autocatalytic recombiner, the temperature at which this reaction occurs are much lower, so that it doesn't create the hydrogen to ignite. So that is the biggest advantage of that. You can either use platinum or palladium. Both, basically, I'll show you the picture of it. So what it does is hydrogen passes through that. They get adsorbed on the surface of the hydrogen. So hydrogen is adsorbed, oxygen is adsorbed. Then there is a reaction that takes place between hydrogen and oxygen in the platinum plate, and eventually steam is formed, and the steam is desorbed. Therefore, how do we model this kind of a process? How many plates are required? What do we do? So that is where the problem, because the BRC originally was only supposed to intercompare. After we had compared the code, when we found the concentrations are very high, so we thought that we should start working on it, because one of the PhD student was working on, we need some creative answers. So we had tried different ways of simulating this, and let me say what kind of a thing which we basically carried out. Let us see how does a catalytic recombiner looks. Typically, it consists of several parallel plates, which are the catalytic plates, and we have a little bit of a chimney so that it can generate some buoyancy, so that hydrogen will automatically come here, it will get absorbed, and the gases will leave because there is an adsorption, and steam will form and it will go away. It will be slightly at a higher temperature, and therefore there will be a naturally the a hydrogen and air mixture will be drawn in because of this chimney effect. So that this is just mounted on the wall, so that as and when hydrogen concentration builds up, it will automatically react. So now that means there is a surface reaction going on. So we need to model the surface reaction. So for example, we can use a one-step model like using an Arrhenius type of expression, where this is the Schaefer. There is a researcher called Schaefer who had postulated this kind of an equation, and we had used this, but we found that this expression was not that accurate. So therefore, we need to handle little bit in a detailed reaction. I'll tell you in a moment what we had done. And then there is also a third model where we assume that the reaction is instantaneous. That means the moment hydrogen goes, it simply is adsorbed, and therefore it is only the diffusion. That is how the hydrogen moves from higher concentration to lower concentration, and that decides the consumption of hydrogen, rather than the reaction rates do not. And what we found is this over predicts, this under predicts, and this basically worked. What we mean by that is a detailed reaction is something like this, and from this detailed reaction we came up with an modified one reaction model. I'll say what I'll tell you in a moment. So remember, when chemical reaction occurs, it is not that H2 plus half O2 is H2O, but the hydrogen goes and gets absorbed in the platinum, and from oxygen also goes absorbed in the platinum, and the so-called, you will see that you will get the hydrogen reacts into, and it forms the H2O, and there are multiple reactions. There are adsorption reactions, there are surface reactions, there are desorption reactions, and they have certain coefficients. These are available typically from the literature which we have collected, and we try to see whether we can develop this model, modify this in Fluent, insert this model as an external model, and run the case. And we managed it. Now, when you do a CFD type of an analysis, we have to make sure that the the results are predictable. That means it is able to do a decent job. So we were able to get some results from the literature on a mock autocatalytic recombiner. In fact, one of our papers which we sent at that time, we could meet one of the researcher, and we were able to get this data from the German researcher, and we used this data to eventually compare. So we had done this for 1%. Of course, he had data only from 1% to 4%, and the inlet temperatures varying from 25 to 70, and the inlet velocity typically from 0.5 to 0.8 meter per second, which is typically what you see in natural convection or natural draw. And this is for steady state, and we also got some transient data, and where the concentration initially for the inlet is going from 0% to 4% linearly increased. So now when we predicted, we typically, this is our steady state simulation. What I just wanted to tell you here is, this is the plate. I hope you are able to see that bulk of the hydrogen. Remember, this is the hydrogen concentration high, and it is eaten up very fast. So very quickly the hydrogen disappears, and then you remember the outside wall is not a catalytic plate, so that is why you see a boundary layer kind of a thing which is formed right there. And so what you see is it's all water vapor comes, and then eventually water vapor goes. So if we are able to predict this, and from the data, the only data which was available was some thermocouples on the walls, because only the temperatures were measured on the, because they are very close to each other, these plates. I have given you the dimensions, you can peacefully look at. So therefore what you basically will see is the gaps are very small, and therefore you will see only thermocouple data was available, and we compared the thermocouple data at different times. And typically what you will basically see, this is the temperature, and this is the position from the bottom of the plate, And this is the experimental data. And these are the three models we had done. One is the so-called the Schaefer's model, which is under predicting. The multiple equation model, which is doing a reasonable job. And then instantaneous what do you call accumulation, instantaneous consumption of hydrogen is it is not able to, it is over predicting. And eventually what you basically see that one the multi reaction model was able to do a decent job. Then we fitted this data and created an equivalent one step model, and that was also doing reasonably all right, because that was a fitted from this model data, so it did a reasonable job. So the under prediction is from the Schaefer's data. We predicted the derived data was much better with multiple equations, and the so-called the diffusion, that means instantaneous consumption, is over predicting the data. That means there is too much consumption, the temperature goes up. So remember, when we do that, at least we got a model. But now the problem is we have a, for example, if I just show you here, this is the size of the plate, etc., which are few millimeters away, and we have to do this for example, I just showed you the what you see is a massive building, and these are going to be in some walls here. And if I want to resolve these what do you call the nodes, then if the gap is about 5-6 millimeters, then I need computational nodes which are of the order of 0.1 millimeter or so, if I want to get about 50 nodes or whatever. So therefore what you see is the gaps are very small. So therefore typically what happens is, how do we handle or how do we do the grid generation when it is connected to a big building? So we came up with an intelligent idea. That means I think those who are in CFD, they know that on combustion scale, I have to predict in a plate, I need 0.1 millimeter. Whereas for the entire volume, I need of the order of 100 millimeter. Otherwise, the massive building cannot be covered. So how do I do this? So to get so-called the good mesh quality, we came up with an interesting method to find how to couple them so that it can run for a long time. So there, I'll show you what the whole thing was. We have developed a lump model, but it is like this. I'll show a picture. So this will explain you. For example, this is the kind of part of it. So these are the building meshes, and these are the meshes which are going to be, this has been exploded by the side. You see, they are very fine meshes. Now I have to couple this with a suitably increasing mesh, then and only I can handle. But on the other hand, I can make it little coarser by doing what is called a lumped model. That means I treat this as only one plate and everything is done, so I don't have to do heavy calculations in this. So what we had done is, we had done heavy calculations first, and then subsequently we were able to fit these into appropriate correlations, and which we can insert so that I will have only one node for a plate, and so that this whole thing is lumped into one kind of a mathematical model. And when we did that, we were able to do, for example, the range which we covers most of the range of the plates which are normally seen, the velocities, the temperatures, etc. And these are the coefficients which you have to find. What is the permeability, what is going to be the heat transfer coefficient, what is going to be the reaction rate. All these are calculated for very small nodes and then fitted into a data. And then we only do the following: what is the hydrogen concentration at which it is entering, and using those, what will be the plate temperatures and what concentration of hydrogen it will move out. So that the entire calculation is done as a lumped model right there as a point. So you can call it as a point model if you feel like. But to generate correct buoyancy, we were able to have it is as a, there's a hydraulic diameter, so that the buoyancy generation can be handled properly. So therefore we had shown, one is the fully resolved model, other is the lumped model, and we were able to show that one is the lumped model, other is the distributed model. Yes, there are variations within the box, but when you come towards the exit of the box, remember, inside nothing much is going to happen. So at the exit, you see the concentration predicted by both the models are very well captured, so that we can use this lumped model, which reduces the computational time to a very small value. So we had also done for a transient analysis. So it's 858, right? So, and we were able to show that even the transient, it is able to capture reasonably well overall. So therefore, we had come out with an appropriate model, which we can use it for the so-called a large building, and which can be computationally efficient. Of course, to demonstrate that, we had taken a kind of a small two-dimensional analysis where we had put in the, I'll show you the, okay, this picture will show you, we had put two of these recombiners, and we were having lumped, and we could do an appropriate gridding so that we can become reasonable. And just to show you, sorry, so we had done this for about 5 compartments, and the injection was done at the bottommost compartment. And anyway, the walls, because there will be some temperature etc involved, some conduction with high temperature steam also, so therefore you will see some conduction effect etc. So overall, when we did this, and I'll just show you typically with the containment and with the recombiner and without recombiner, we were able to reduce the concentration. Now, the whole question many times is how many should they be provided on the walls, how many to be provided, how to optimize this. For example, there may be about 50 such recombiners spread over this containment building. Where to put them, how to put them is all an optimization kind of a problem, which can be resolved. We had not done that up to that point. And subsequently, of course, the atomic energy people, we had given all whatever we had done, the entire data we shared with them, and they have taken it forward. And that is how we try to completely close that particular thing. So therefore, what we basically see from the thing is the recombiner is able to do the job. A catalytic recombiner can be used, and we identified, and we studied, and we found that it is quite good. So we had simplified the detailed mechanism, and that thing worked very well. And whatever we had done, my PhD students, after he left, and there was another PhD student who joined from the Atomic Energy Regulatory Board. He's still using that code, and he's done a lot more work after this. But what we are basically saying is that this code, which started about 10-15 years ago, has taken deep roots, and it is one of the model which is very currently used even in Atomic Energy Regulatory Board. So as far as the simplified mechanism we evolved, we had done experimental benchmarks, and we showed that the buoyancy capsulon is working well, and we were able to find out, and we could even lump it, and by getting the what you call the expressions for what you call the reaction rate, the heat transfer coefficients, etc., and we could integrate and then run it for the entire building. So overall, what we came up with is, of course, we have done a detailed methodology to represent the catalytic combiner into a single computational node, and the overall error was of the order of about 2.5%, and the overall predictions we were able to get for steady state of the order of about 5% at most problem, and transients was slightly less only in the beginning of it, of that order of about 6%. So it was fairly good, so we can always have a factor of safety and appropriately predict the whole thing. So what is the overall conclusion from the study? In fact, when we started, we had no idea how to proceed, and slowly and steadily, one after the other, we resolved it. We identified the model, then we decided that we have to go for a recombiner, and then we had to study what is the recombiner, and then eventually see how to model them, and then how to then finally combine them with a huge containment building. Everyone, we had to, of course, hypothesize some idea and then work on it. And that gave me the following conclusion, which I believe is R&D is an extremely excitable and an addictive thing, so long as one is very curious. And though go out, it is not that we started with only inter-code comparison, but we said no, once we found a problem, we have to move forward, and we kept moving forward. And one problem flows into another, and it keeps you continuously occupied and excited. And in my opinion, there's never a dull moment, because every day you are pondering how to solve this problem and how to solve that problem, and eventually the entire thing is done. Yes, the learning never ends, because the next student takes, we introduce team, and 3 generation of students have worked on, and now of course I have come to IIT Jammu. I'm not working on this anymore, whereas my students are still continuing in atomic energy. So to me, the problem goes on and on and on. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir, for your insights on this.
Open for any questions.
Yes, sir. The participants, if you have questions, please you can ask sir. With a request, you can switch on your camera and have an interaction. It will be a live interaction. Over to participants.
Yeah, I don't know whether it all went through top of the head. You can ask general questions, not an issue. Okay, I think everybody is very clear.
Hello, sir. Good evening, sir.
Yeah. Good evening.
I think I'm audible.
Yeah. Yes, you are.
Sir, this fluent modeling you use ANSYS, fluent ANSYS.
Yes.
Suppose if I want to model the entire generation and storage system for hydrogen, any software
Yeah.
can you suggest, sir, for complete?
Yeah, you can do.
Modeling.
We had used ANSYS Fluent for this only. So you can use ANSYS Fluent, particularly if you are from an educational institute, then is highly subsidized, and so you can take it as a student kind of a model to begin with, and you can just run in a small cluster. You don't need a very huge computer and so on. So you can easily run this in reasonably small, maybe something like 64 processor or whatever is. Aajkal even a little bit workstation can do the job very well.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
So there are what is called the facility of what is called user defined function. So therefore these ANSYS may not have its own standard features. Some of them, for example, some reactions you have to insert on your own. Then you can actually do that by you can write a small program, a C program, compile it along with ANSYS Fluent. It gives you a facility, and then you can run it.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Welcome.
So there is one more question in the chat box. Can we use the hydrogen directly in IC engine, sir?
Repeat?
Can we use hydrogen directly in IC engine? There is a question in the chat box.
Yeah, I think so. And you can only thing is you have to be appropriately how much to introduce, when to, what, etc. But I think it can be done.
Okay,
and you can simulate also.
Oh.
Though I have not done it, but it is very much possible.
Yes, sir.
So I will share this presentation, and
hello, sir. Very good evening.
Want to share. Sorry, please go ahead.
Yeah, please, Kiran Kumar, please you can have a question.
Sir, nice presentation, sir. Myself, Kiran Kumar. Sir, my question is that when you supply the hydrogen and any polyurethane material, is it acceptable, sir? Means the material what we are using in the pipeline industries. So when you supply hydrogen, so like what are the causes it will going to happen? Can you just elaborate, sir?
To be very honest, see, I'm not a materials guy, so I don't think I'll be most appropriate. But I'll do one thing. I think Satya Shekhar will be coming.
He is coming tomorrow, sir.
Tomorrow, na? So yeah. I will request him whether he can answer this question tomorrow, because he is a person who is in. See, I'm basically a nuclear engineer in fluid mechanics, heat transfer, and incidentally, I worked on this problem. Okay. So whereas he is a full-time hydrogen man, so I'll request him if he can. Basically, you are saying in polyurethane whether there are any issues if you use hydrogen, right?
Yes, sir.
I will ask him to provide this answer tomorrow.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Professor Satya Shekhar will be coming tomorrow. Somebody is asking something.
Any other questions?
So you can distribute this to people, and there are 3 papers. So maybe I'll add those 3 first page of the papers also, in so that if they want any of those papers, we can give it to them.
That is fine, sir. That is okay, sir. That's
okay.
Good. So, let me conclude this session 2 on the first day. So I thank Professor Kannan Iyer, sir, joining on after 8 o'clock. So for us on his personal time, it's a very honor to take hold on this meeting, sir. So you given various insight on this safety hydrogens, exclusively on what you call it, nuclear management. Both there is a fluent, in the simulation work and an experimental part also you showed. It is very informative to all the participants. Even in the after during night time, we having on board 155 participants. It is a really good informative session to all. Even in people are giving very good, very informative session in the chat box. So I thank you, sir. Thank you so much for joining with us and delivered your talk. Thank you, sir.
Sure. So I hope I stuck to time. I don't know exactly. I think by 9 we wanted to complete 45 minutes. I managed it, I guess.
Yes,
so
sir.
Anyway, I will just send it to you right away, and you can appropriately distribute to these people.
Yeah, sure.
And my email ID is there. If anybody needs more help of any kind, they are welcome to write a mail, and I will appropriately reply to these participants.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Thank you for providing this opportunity.
It's a pleasure, sir. Thank you. So today the session is over. It is a small request to the participants. Tomorrow, please be on time. Your attendance sheet, whatever the coupon is generating, we are going to share with you. Please check your attendance and self verification method. So the final day, probably it is an examination will be there. Please, you can take a note of all the lectures and secure minimum of 70% as AICTE is prescribed. So thank you. So we'll leave today. So good night to all.
Okay, thank you, and good night.
Good night, sir.
So can I log off?
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yes, sir. You can red
Thank you.
Yeah, please. Yes, sir. So thank you, participants. We'll meet tomorrow. Thank you. Good night.
Good night, sir.
Thank you, sir. Good night. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Good
Thank
night,
you so
professor.
much.
Good night.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. We'll meet tomorrow.